Chapter 2013. Bang. The moment of contact was extremely short. Like an egg hitting a rock, Yu Hualong's dragon claws were rolled back and broken. The bones in his arms were shattered and splashed everywhere. He was even thrown away by the tremendous force. His whole body was dripping with blood. Trash, one time, 3 times. Do you really think I have a good temper? Swish. Chu Yang moved and chased after Yu Hualong. His palm fell directly on Yu Hualong's head. With a thud, Yu Hualong was directly stuffed into the ground. In just a moment, Yu Hualong, who had turned into a half-dragon, was defeated in a flash. Once again, he was humiliated and stuffed into the ground without any strength to fight back, which was astonishing. Chu Yang was too strong. His attack was more powerful and overbearing than anyone had imagined. Is this Pit Chu? He crushed Yu Hualong effortlessly. I wonder what will happen when he gets angry. That's right. Previously, Chu Yang relied on the thunder tribulation. How could he have such a domineering and impactful attack? Even when he defeated his opponents with one move, everyone only knew that he was strong. Absolutely, it was not as visually shocking as it was now. A roar came from the ground. Immediately, with a loud bang, a huge dragon head rushed out. The dragon opened its mouth, which was as large as a mile, and bit at Chu Yang. With a crack, Chu Yang was directly swallowed. Wild dog, you forced me to show my true form and became my food. You should be proud of yourself. It was a red dragon, covered in red dragon scales. Endless fierce and violent aura surged out of the dragon's body. Its dragon claws were shining with frightening cold light as if they were butcher's knives. Its body, which was hundreds of feet long, was hovering in the air, covering the sky and the sun. After Yu Hualong had completely transformed into a dragon, his physical body and mental strength were far superior. His continuous attacks were all easily neutralized by Chu Yang. Being scolded as a trash, he had no choice but to use his last trump card. The sudden change caused many people to be stupefied. The originally invincible Chu Yang had actually become something in the stomach in the blink of an eye. It was truly shocking, and they couldn't react for a moment. Chu Hang is just SOSO. What bullshit invincible? That's right. So what if he's capable? The more arrogant you are, the more miserable your death will be. This time, you'll become something in my stomach and come out as a pile of shit. Yu Hualong was overjoyed when he heard that. He was about to laugh out loud when his expression changed abruptly. My kingdom of dragons! Yu Hualong shouted. He had obtained the nation of the dragon from a saint-level true dragon. It was a world condensed by a true dragon. Everything he had now was based on the nation of the dragon. Wild dog, how dare you! With a crack, just like how he had swallowed Chu Yang also swallowed the nation of the dragon. Yu Hualong was dumbfounded by Chu Yang's ferocity. The wild dog had actually eaten the world condensed by a saint-level true dragon. Trash, you talk too much. Chu Yang raised his hand and made a suction force. Then, Yu Hualong's divine soul was directly taken out. Only then did Yu Hualong realize that it was not because he was capable. It was because the wild dog had deliberately let him swallow him so that he could seize the nation of the dragon and take his spirit. He has long known that I have the world condensed by the dragon sage in my body. Rumbling sounds could be heard as the thought appeared in Yu Hualong's mind. However, before he could finish, he died with his eyes wide open. The dragon body that was thousands of feet long fell to the ground. Chu Yang had appeared on the dragon's head without anyone noticing. Yu Hualong was killed just like that? There was dead silence at the scene. Logically speaking, the result was already decided when the demonic beast swallowed one person in one gulp. Especially since Yu Hualong had already evolved into a dragon, he could totally refine Chu Yang to death with his internal organs, even if Chu Yang was stronger. However, the truth was just the opposite. Chapter 2014. Seeing Chu Yang standing on the dragon's head, Those who cheered just now trembled and fell to the ground directly. Chu Yang frowned with a cold face, but he didn't make a move in the end. Instead, he dragged Yu Hualong out of the arena. "Bastard, do you have a big pot?" "Yes, there must be, even if there isn't," the parrot shouted excitedly, which immediately stunned everyone. Then they realized what Chu Yang was going to do: eat dragon meat. Dragon meat in the sky and donkey meat on the ground. Dragon meat was absolutely delicious. The competition between the 6 academies continued, but many people's attention was still on Chu Yang's group. Soon, they smelled the fragrance of meat. Chu Yang's group soon began to eat heartily, which made people drool with envy. "Savage, why is he called Chu Hang? Just change his name to Savage Chu." "Let me remind you, he has been called Savage Chu for a long time. By the way, let me remind you, he is not only Savage Chu, but also Demon King Chu, Shameless Chu, Poet Chu." After this reminder, many people immediately thought of Chu Yang's rich life, which made Chu Yang even more afraid. As the competition of the 6 academies went on, many amazing people showed up. Compared with Chu Yang, their brilliance suddenly dimmed, but it didn't last long. Soon, Chu Yang realized that someone else had received the same treatment as him. One person was competing, and the rest of the matches were all suspended. Chu Yang naturally paid attention to such a person, but he didn't need to look at him to know who he was. Many people would tell him the answer. Is the Sky Academy going to defy the natural order in this competition? First, it was Chu Hang and now Gong Sunlong. At first, Gong Sunlong did not attract much attention. However, he defeated all his opponents with only one move. He did not need a second move. This is simply unimaginable. When he was competing, the 6 academy heads personally came. Even the 6 academy heads praised him. That's why he attracted so much attention and received the same treatment as Chu Hang. Gong Sunlong's strength is real, but Chu Hang's strength is a bit exaggerated. When Chu Yang heard the name Gong Sunlong, he couldn't help but frown. It seems that Gong Sunlong is definitely not simple. He agreed with what was said in the discussion. He was indeed playing to the gallery to attract everyone's attention. This was easier, but it was different for Gong Sunlong. He had to take one step at a time to make a name for himself, which was much more difficult. Without a stunning enough performance, it was absolutely impossible to achieve this. Chu Yang could not help but pay attention to the situation on the arena. During this period of time, he had intended to feel the changes in the paradise. Even though the Dragon Saint was dead, it was impossible for Chu Yang to devour the Dragon Saint's world. However, under the suggestion of the Ice Kuan, he tried it and found that it was easy to do. He even quickly refined the Dragon Saint's world and obtained the Saint's origin in the Dragon Saint's world. One could say that his 100 heavenly grotto heavens were truly extraordinary. After devouring the dragon world, 3 of them had transformed into godhood. In that case, he would have 5 of his grotto heavens transformed into godhoods. This meant that he reached the 5th level of the Transcendence realm all of a sudden. The nourishment of the rules of the origin of saints was extremely rapid, and many new rules were derived at once. Chu Yang naturally had to comprehend the new rules. In addition, he realized a very serious problem. It was difficult for him to break through his realm. It was simply a dead end. If he didn't have a great opportunity, he might not be able to break through for the rest of his life. Chapter 2015 Zhuiyun Mountain of the Sky Demon Academy. While Chu Yang was thinking about this, the 2 contestants had already entered the arena. With a rumble, a youth with a vertical eye on his forehead fell from the sky, causing the arena to shake violently. Gong Sunlong of the Sky Sword Academy. Gong Sunlong's actions were calm and elegant, without the slightest trace of anger, and his face was extremely handsome. As soon as he spoke, it immediately caused many female students to scream endlessly, and many male students also cheered. It could be said that he was extremely popular with both men and women. He's much more likable than this marshal. Chu Yang temporarily gave up on breaking through and couldn't help but laugh. His fame was no less than Gongsun Long's, but he was from the eastern wilderness. No matter how outstanding his performance was, it was impossible for him to receive such support. Apart from shocking and frightening people, it was wishful thinking for him to receive the love of the students of the 6 great academies. He wouldn't receive love, only fear and reverence. The fear and reverence of the students of the 6 great academies. This marshal won't receive the love and support of the East Continent, but I'll definitely receive the love and support of the Eastern Wilderness. One day I'll make the entire East Continent tremble at my feet. I'll imprint fear and reverence into their bones and spread it through their bloodlines. Chu Yang believed that day wouldn't be too far away. Gongsun Long, thank you for your previous efforts. I Zhuiyuntian want everything you worked so hard for. It's useless even if you have any objections. On the arena, the Sky Demon Academy student, Zhuiyuntian, crossed his arms and sneered arrogantly. You have to give me what I want even if you don't want to. You can't resist. If you know what's good for you, admit defeat. If you're not careful, I'll kill you with one punch. Zhuiyun Mountain, who do you think you are? How dare you boast so shamelessly? You don't know what you're talking about. Is Gongsun Long someone you have the right to be so arrogant? Who are you going to kill? Zhuiyun Mountain, you better not be killed by one punch later. Aren't you afraid of biting your tongue? It was completely different from when Chu Yang was provoked. Countless people jumped out to protect Gongsun Long, especially some female students. They were so agitated that they did not hesitate to insult and curse. Chu Yang couldn't help but sigh at the gap between people. Gongsun Long raised his hand, and the entire crowd fell silent. Chu Yang would never be able to summon such power. Zhuiyunshan, is that all you have? Gongsun Long was very gentlemanly, and immediately caused the female students to scream. Ha ha! Zhuiyunshan threw his head back and laughed. Gongsun Long, don't think that you're so great just because your performance was amazing. It won't take much effort for me to deal with you. You talk too much. Gongsun Long waved his sleeve and said, Please, humph. Zhuiyunshan said coldly, Gongsun Long, this is the result of you refusing a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. I will send you to heaven right now, die. Zhuiyunshan roared and threw a punch. There was no loud sound, and the power of this punch was restrained to the extreme. Demonic chi rolled out of the punch, and demonic patterns danced in the sky. It was as if thousands of demons were attacking Gongsun Long. This punch was extremely powerful, and at the same time, it contained an extremely powerful Dao technique. The endless power and the shocking Dao technique complemented each other, and the power was raised to another level. Zhuiyunshan was indeed arrogant, but his strength was also not low. His cultivation level was not low, at the 5th tier of the undead spirit realm. Roar! Gongsun Long opened his mouth and roared. The heaven and earth shook and the sound waves rushed out. The rolling demonic chi was silently wiped out like filth, and the demonic patterns in the sky collapsed inch by inch. Then, Zhuiyunshan exploded with a bang, and blood and bones flew everywhere, like a blood-red demonic flower blooming. One roar and you're dead. You're a 5th-tier undead spirit realm cultivator. Chapter 2016. Ah! Gongsun Long's roar shattered Zhuiyun Mountain, and the screams of the female students from the 6 great academies filled the sky. Seeing Gongsun Long in the arena like a god with peerless grace and majesty, their screams became even more uncontrollable. Good, good, good. How dare this bullshit Zhuiyun Mountain boast so shamelessly? He deserves to die. Gongsun Long is not someone he can provoke. Humph, he wants to trample on Gongsun Long to make a name for himself. He's simply courting death. What do you mean by wishful thinking? Zhuiyun Mountain is a classic example. You and I should take this as a lesson. The dignity of someone like Gong Sun Long is absolutely inviolable. It was not just the female students of the 6 great academies. Many of the male students of the 6 great academies respected Gong Sun Long even more. They kept belittling Zhuiyun Mountain. It was a completely one-sided situation. It was as if Gong Sun Long had killed an unpardonable villain. Amidst the cheers, Gong Sun Long suddenly turned around. With a swoosh, when his gaze met Chu Yang's, all the voices immediately disappeared. With Gong Sun Long's strength, how could he not feel that Chu Yang was watching him? At this moment, Chu Yang was still holding a piece of dragon meat in his hand and oil in his hand. Compared to the elegant and majestic Gong Sun Long, he immediately paled in comparison. His appearance and aura were completely inferior. Chu Yang and Gong Sun Long looked at each other. They did not say anything, but the atmosphere in the arena was extremely tense. It was as if the two of them were already in a life-and-death battle, and the outcome was about to be decided. The parrot, Lu Yunpeng, and the others beside Chu Yang also stopped what they were doing and looked at the two of them facing each other. However, until the end, the two of them did not say anything. Gong Sun Long turned around and left. As his figure spread out, he left the arena very elegantly and disappeared in an instant. Chu Yang, on the other hand, ate the dragon meat in big bites under everyone's gaze. During this process, nothing seemed to have happened. It was as if what should have happened had already happened. Everyone knew that if the two of them were to meet, it would definitely cause the heavens to collapse and the earth to rend. A world-shaking battle would erupt. There was no doubt about this. Chu Yang was definitely the most dazzling star in the competition of the 6 academies. He made everyone pale in comparison and attracted everyone's attention, becoming the focus of everyone's attention. Gong Sun Long came later, but no one could hide his brilliance and elegance. He was the star that could be compared to Chu Yang. If one of them was a dragon, then the other was a tiger. The dragon and the tiger would fight. The dragon and the tiger, the wind and the clouds. As the pressure dragon Sun Long's name Sun Long, people's a name sun god Sun Long, it is said that Chu Kung and Gong Sun Long are enemies. If the two of them meet in the grand competition, they will definitely fight to the death. Before Chu Feng came to the eastern wilderness, his elder brother went to the Sky Academy and met Gong Sun Long. Gong Sun Long cut off one of his arms. S. Long's. His. T long S is a ST's is? Oh, that's not all. You don't know, right? When Chu Hang entered the Sky Academy, he was mocked and ridiculed by countless people. They called him a wild dog, including Gong Sun Long's 2 younger brothers. Gong Sun Long's 2 younger brothers were both killed by Chu Hang. Hearing such news, many people could not help but be shocked. So, the feud between the two of them is huge? How else could it be said that when the two of them meet, it will definitely be a big explosion? Chapter 2017. Suddenly, someone said, "Do you think the battle between Chu Hang and Gong Sun Long is the battle between the Eastern Wilderness and the East Continent? Chu Hang represents the Eastern Wilderness, and Gong Sun Long represents the East Continent." Someone couldn't help but gasp. If that's the case, then the impact of this battle will be huge. That's right. If Chu Hang wins, the East Continent will be trampled under his feet. We won't have the right to laugh at the Eastern Wilderness. On the other hand, if Gong Sun Long wins, the Eastern Wilderness will lose its confidence. It'll be almost impossible for them to make a comeback. That's right. How many people like Chu Hang have appeared in the Eastern Wilderness for thousands of years? It's already a blessing from the heavens for the Eastern Wilderness to have such a person. Chu Hang alone is enough to suppress the East Continent. If a few more people like him come, it'll be even worse. The battle between Chu Yang and Gong Sun Long had already shocked everyone. When they thought of this, it was even more shocking. It could be said that the battle between the two was completely different. Whether it was Chu Yang or Gong Sun Long, Both of them had unknowingly shouldered a great mission and a heavy honor. Chu Yang wasn't the only one with ears. Cui Xinho's trio, Lu Yunping's trio, the parrot and Shangguan Lan all had ears. If Chu Yang could hear it, then so could they. Shangguan Lan didn't say anything. She didn't feel the need to say anything. She didn't need to say anything. She believed that this wouldn't be a problem for Chu Yang. If she expressed her worry, she would only burden Chu Yang. Chu Hang, are you feeling pressure? While Cui Xinho and the other two were worried, Lu Yunping, Xia Wanjin, and Xiong Longxiang smiled brilliantly. They even wanted to thank Gong Sunlong, because it was Gong Sunlong who allowed them to see Chu Yang under pressure. In particular, the significance of this battle was very important, so the pressure on Chu Yang was even greater. Xiong Longxiang used to be from the Qiankuan party and was also from the East Continent. At this moment he smiled and said, Chu Hang, do you know about the Gongsun family? Do you know about the Gongsun family's sacred artifact, the Yin-Yang Four Symbols vase? Let me tell you something to be happy about. Gongsun Long's martial spirit is the Yin-Yang Four Symbols vase, which is a perfect match for the Gongsun family's saint artifact. Yin-Yang vase of 4 symbols? When Chu Yang heard these words again, he suddenly felt very distant. He had once used a replica of the Yin-Yang Four Symbols vase in the eastern wilderness. He had long since learned from his second brother, the Saint Child, that Gong Suanlong's martial soul was the Yin-Yang Four Symbols vase. It's dragged on for too long. It's time to settle this grudge. Chu Yang muttered to himself. You don't seem surprised at all, and you don't seem surprised at all? Xiong Longxiang was slightly surprised. He thought that Chu Yang probably didn't know about the power of the Yin-Yang Four Symbols vase, so he immediately said, Chu Hang, let me remind you. The Yin-Yang Four Symbols vase is extremely amazing. It can devour and refine anything. Once it's sucked into the Yin-Yang Four Symbols vase, hee. Xiong, what the hell are you hee for? The parrot directly scolded. Are you proud to know a little bit of common sense? You're just an idiot with no eyesight. Didn't you notice that Chu Hang already knew about it? Xiong Longxiang was stunned, then he laughed and thought to himself, I worried for nothing. Who is Chu Hang? The ancestor of deceiving others? He should have already schemed against his enemy. How could he not know about Gong Suanlong's background? Chapter 2018. Chu Hang, how do you feel now? This was what the two were most concerned about. Of course, it was also what Xiong Longxiang was concerned about. At that moment, 3 pairs of eyes looked at Chu Yang with a playful smile on their faces. As such, it was extremely interesting for them. What kind of behavior would Pit Chu have when facing pressure? What kind of reaction would he have? The 3 of them were so curious that they were about to die. What do you guys think? The corners of Chu Yang's mouth curved into an arc. How could he not see through these 3 people's wicked interests? However, he said the answer himself. Good, very good. The stronger Gong Sunlong is, the better. Only by defeating him can we defeat the East Continent and crush their arrogance. From then on, I will make them unable to be arrogant. This was one good thing. The other good thing was that the stronger Gong Sunlong was, the more satisfying it would be to kill a powerful enemy. Chu Yang looked into the distance with an expectant look in his eyes. Lu Yunping and the other 2 looked at each other and then said with a wry smile, We should have thought of this earlier. That's right. Xia Wanjin nodded and said, How many people can pressure Chu Hang? If there aren't a few Gong Sunlongs, he will die of loneliness. He will not only die of loneliness. Xiong Longxiang smiled and said, He will be annoyed to death by women. There are so many women in the world. If they all gather around him and keep chattering, I'm sure he won't be able to stand it. Ha ha. Hearing this, Chu Yang couldn't help but laugh loudly. Then he sang about how loneliness was invincible, which made Lu Yunping and the others burst into laughter. Perhaps because of Chu Yang and the others' laughter, the competition of the 6 academies progressed very quickly. The opponents that Chu Yang and Gong Sunlong encountered became stronger and stronger, but they were still unstoppable. No one could stop them. During this process, unknowingly, the top 32 of the 6 academies alliance tournament had been decided. Moreover, the top 16 were already in the process of being chosen from these 32 people. Among the top 32, Chu Yang only had one battle. If he defeated one person and eliminated that person, he would enter the top 16. In the top 32 competition, Chu Yang met a few familiar faces: Chen Burang, Long Xiaojun, Su Yiling, and Feng Polong. He had also seen the new Wanxiang child Li Chou from the Wanxiang Institute and the rumored Jing Wuming from the Heavenly Devil Institute. Other than these people, Chu Yang did not recognize anyone else. The selection of the top 32 opponents was done by drawing lot. In order to ensure fairness, the headmasters of the 6 academies would jointly draw lots. Each of them would draw a slot, and this process would continue until the end. The first match of the top 32 was announced by the Dean of the Sky Demon Academy. He stood on the arena and announced loudly, "The first match, Chu Yang from the number 1 Sky Academy versus Feng Polong from the number 6 Sky Sword Academy." "Haha, Chu Hang, I've been waiting for you for a long time." As soon as the Dean of the Sky Demon Academy finished speaking, Feng Polong laughed loudly. He could not wait to fly onto the arena and point his sword at Chu Yang. "Chu Hang, come and let Grandpa see how good your swordsmanship is." Boom! There was an uproar below the arena. Many people had just realized that Chu Yang had never used a sword in the competition. What he was best at was swordsmanship. This was a bit shocking. It meant that Chu Yang had not used his true strength yet, but he had easily entered the top 32. Even Gong Sunlong was shocked. He had completely overlooked this point. When Chu Yang was in the Sky Academy, his most shocking thing was his swordsmanship. "I was very unhappy when I heard your voice." Chapter 2019. Feng Polong was naturally clear about Chu Yang's purpose, so his actions were to make things difficult for Chu Yang. Chu Hang, of course, would not have a good temper. Of course, this was based on the fact that Feng Polong thought highly of him. "Chu Hang, can you look at me differently? I am a man." As soon as Feng Polong said this, there was an uproar below the stage. They were really surprised by Feng Polong's words. "It seems that you are very clear?" Chu Yang smiled. He wanted to win, and defeating Feng Polong was naturally one of his goals. Of course, he was not angry, but he was very happy with Feng Polong's attitude. "I am very clear." Feng Polong shook his head and denied. "Then you want me to make it clear?" Chu Yang smiled even more mockingly and happily. "It's better if you don't open your mouth." Feng Polong was so scared that he almost jumped up. This made the people below the stage even more surprised. What was going on with Feng Polong? People realized that Feng Polong seemed to have a good relationship with Chu Yang. "It seems that you want to thoroughly experience the complete set meal?" Chu Yang smiled evilly. Feng Polong endured thousands of dikes, thousands of dikes, thousands of dikes, thousands of dikes, tens of thousands of dikes, and still came out. His eyes were as big as a bull's, and he roared, "Chu Hang, can you give me something new? What's with that trick?" Chu Yang smiled and said, "It seems that this amount is just right for you, no more, no less. There is no room for discussion?" Chu Yang was as cunning as a ghost. Feng Polong completely gave up. "What do you think?" "Damn it!" Feng Polong cursed in his heart. This damn sentence came again. "Chu Hang, I don't think you can beat me in swordsmanship." His expression suddenly changed, and he became confident. He also became fierce, and his previous cowardice completely disappeared. He was like a sword that had not been unsheathed for a long time. Now that he had unsheathed his sword, he was ready to kill and drink blood. Shoo! Shoo! All of a sudden, the void trembled as numerous illusory swords appeared. In the blink of an eye, they filled the sky, shuttling back and forth. Sword energy and flying swords filled the air, making them look like stars in the sky. That place seemed to have transformed into a world of swords in an instant. Brother Tuoba, your sky sword's Feng Pelong swordsmanship is amazing. Even in the central prefecture, it's at least average, or even better. In the enclosed spectator's stand, the East Continent inspector couldn't help but exclaim in surprise when he saw this. Feng Pelong's swordsmanship was so high that he felt that Feng Pelong was an average person even when compared to those geniuses in Central State. Even he couldn't compare. If he had Feng Pelong's talent, he wouldn't be a mere East Continent inspector. Among the many martial arts, the swordsmanship could be said to be extremely powerful in terms of offensive power. In the same realm, a swordsman's strength was usually a level higher. Brother Sun, you're too kind. The Sky Sword Academy leader said politely. He can only show off in the East Continent, but I'm afraid he can't do that. Judging from his tone just now, he probably feels that he's not as good as Chu Yang. That's his true nature, the East Continent inspector said with a smile. He doesn't discriminate against the people of the Eastern Wilderness, so he probably won't be afraid of the people of Central State. He's definitely a talent. That's right. The leaders of the other 5 academies nodded when they heard this, but their smiles soon disappeared. Because if that was the case, the other students of the 6 academies wouldn't be able to stand it. Many students could order Chu Yang around and call him a wild dog. They felt that they were superior and that it was only natural. With such a mindset, many of these students would probably feel that it was only natural when they arrived in Central State and faced the high and mighty people of Central State. Even the East Continent inspector was full of praise for Feng Pelong, let alone the audience. When they saw Feng Pelong erupt, they were already in an uproar. Oh my God, Feng Pelong hasn't even made a move yet, and such an amazing phenomenon has already appeared. Can he control 1,000 swords, or even 10,000 swords at the same time? Chapter 2020. Hee. When Feng Pelong heard the exclamations, he could not help but feel proud. He said to Chu Yang, Chu Hang, did you see that? I'm a genius. At the same time, he became more confident and looked forward to this battle even more. Originally, when they were in the 7 Wheels Demon Realm, he wanted to challenge Chu Yang to a battle. Chu Yang would naturally agree to this battle. He was looking forward to Chu Yang's sword skills and Chu Yang's sword principle. In terms of sword principle, there were not many people who could make him think highly of, and there were even fewer people who could make Zhang Jian think highly of. However, even Zhang Jian was very wary of Chu Yang. This was purely referring to sword principle, and it had nothing to do with strength, realm, or other means. In terms of all means, even though Zhang Jian was a holy disciple and had the cultivation of a semi-saint, he might not be able to kill Chu Yang. Chu Yang had too many means. For example, the lightning tribulation was a very good means for Chu Yang, but Chu Yang could not use it during the competition. Zhang Jian was envious of this battle. Feng Pelong's realm was not high, and he was only at the 3rd level of the undead spirit realm. This was also something that Feng Pelong was particularly proud of. He had deliberately suppressed his realm so that he could compete with Chu Yang in sword principle when their strength was equal. Only when their strengths were equal could Chu Yang's swordsmanship be displayed to the fullest. Unfortunately, his realm was still a little higher. Fortunately, Chu Yang's strength was definitely not weak, and he should be able to make up for the difference in realm. Chu Yang did not say anything. He knew that Feng Pelong was looking forward to this battle, especially since this was a battle that he had to win. He had to go all out, and this made Feng Pelong look forward to it even more. Chu Yang, let me see how amazing your strength in sword principle is. All of Feng Pelong's playful expression disappeared, and became incomparably austere. His opponent was Chu Yang. He needed to not hold back at all. He could not be careless. He adjusted himself to his best condition. This battle was not a joke. He would never treat his sword Dao as a joke, and he would never treat his life as a joke. Master, did you feel the change in him? Chu Yang was stunned when the Ice Koan suddenly spoke. He naturally noticed Feng Pelong's seriousness and the incomparably austere aura. Master, you're always so cheeky. Even if you win, the people of the East Continent will only remember your smile and not your majesty. Chu Yang immediately understood that if a country's leader was always smiling, the country would be looked down upon by other countries because of this leader. A country's leader should act like a leader, because every word and action of his represented his country and his people. How could he not be decent and make people laugh? He had always neglected such an important issue. To a certain extent, he had completely represented the Eastern wilderness. All of his outrageous behavior was actually discrediting the Eastern wilderness. I hope it's not too late for me to realize it, Chu Yang said in his heart. He also understood why all of this had happened. He had not yet adapted to the identity of the leader of the Eastern wilderness. He had not yet grown up. He was still a child. It was like a man who became a father at a young age, but continued to live in the same way as before. He did not realize that he had become a husband and a father. But the moment this man became a father, he had already decided that he could no longer stay in the same position. He had to grow up and step into a new and extremely strange stage from the current stage. Please. Chu Yang thought about all kinds of things in his mind. The frivolous expression completely disappeared. Perhaps he was not familiar with it, but he was working hard in this direction. Chapter 2021. Please. Feng Pelong was not the slightest bit surprised by Chu Yang's change. He was not the only one who was serious about the sword and the way of the sword. Zhang Jian was also serious, and so was Chu Yang. Feng Pelong believed that every outstanding swordsman was the same. On the arena, the two were facing each other in an invisible confrontation. Their long hair fluttered without wind, and the atmosphere was tense to the extreme in an instant. Perhaps in the next moment the outcome would be decided, and someone would die. A battle between swordsmen was often the most dangerous. At this moment, everyone could not help but hold their breaths, waiting for that moment to come. A clanging sound suddenly rang out, scaring everyone. Soon after, they realized that it was a false alarm. Chu Yang had already unsheathed the sword of contradiction in his hand and pointed it straight at Feng Pelong. It was extremely straight, as if it was pointing straight at his heart. Feng Pelong also had a sword in his hand, but the difference was that behind him, there were 999 long swords scattered like stars in the sky, like a restless army. One person controlling 1,000 swords, this was Feng Pelong's way of the sword. His sword was endless, and quantity was king. The two of them unsheathed their swords, and in an instant, sword chi swept out in all directions. The sky was filled with swords, and there were swords everywhere. Everything had turned into swords. The people below the arena only felt that in the blink of an eye, they were already in a mountain of swords, and in the next moment, their flesh would be cut by the sharp blades. Blood would spurt out, and they would immediately die. Everyone felt that death was extremely close at this moment, and they even heard the footsteps of the Grim Reaper. Tap, tap, tap. This seemed to be the footsteps of the Grim Reaper, the sound of time passing, or the sound of a countdown. Such sounds appeared in everyone's perception, and when the third footstep sounded, Chu Yang moved. Feng Pelong also moved. The two of them moved at the same time, without the slightest difference. Chu Yang's sword didn't have any fancy moves or technique. It was just a straight stab, but it made people feel like they were eating with chopsticks, cutting grass with a sickle, or chopping trees with an axe. It was as it should be. The most basic and essential thing was completely displayed in front of them. This sword also seemed to be expounding some kind of eternal principle. Feng Polong, on the other hand, stabbed out with his sword. In an instant, it was as if he had displayed 1,000 different sword technique. Different people would see different sword technique. The 999 swords behind him whistled through the air like 10,000 swords returning to their master. They carried boundless might as they pierced towards Chu Yang. Dang, dang, dang. Chu Yang's sword was like an overlord slaughtering his way into the enemy. Feng Polong's 99 swords were sent flying the moment they came into contact with Chu Yang's sword. Feng Polong displayed 1,000 sword techniques in his hands, but they seemed to be decorations. His extremely weak defense was penetrated directly. The overlord, alone on his horse, slaughtered his way into an army of thousands of men and horses. No one could rival him, and no one could stop him. He instantly took the head of the general. Chu Yang's sword was such a sword. His sword had already stopped at Feng Polong's throat. The sword aura swallowed and fell on Feng Polong's throat. It was clearly visible that goosebumps had already appeared there. It started in the blink of an eye and ended in the blink of an eye. Everything was as expected. The outcome was decided in an instant, but the difference was that neither Chu Yang nor Feng Polong had died. This could only show how amazing Chu Yang was. In such a dangerous battle between swordsmen, he completely suppressed Feng Polong and completely eliminated the so-called danger. Chapter 2022. It was so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. Heaven and earth seemed to be holding their breath. You, Feng Polong finally reacted and looked at Chu Yang in disbelief. You admit it. Chu Yang withdrew his sword and cupped his fist. At this time, Feng Polong finally realized that something was wrong. Shouldn't Chu Hang say a few words or make him jump with sarcasm? Why did it end like this? He didn't guess the process, let alone the ending. Feng Polong was not used to such a Chu Yang. What kind of swordsmanship is this? After saying such a sentence, he completely returned to his original state. Chu Hang, what happened to the agreement? Where is your sword of freedom, your sword of freedom? You bastard, you are scheming against me. You are digging a hole for me. What a big hole. The more Feng Polong thought about it, the more he felt that it made sense. His neck thickened as he roared, I'm such an idiot. I fell into the hole you dug and thought I was proud of myself. It wasn't until a bastard like you started to fill the hole and wanted to bury me that I realized it. I've lost all my face this time. I might as well be stripped naked and hung up to dry under the sun. Feng Polong was really hurt. Perhaps he was used to seeing the parrot howling, so he also howled like a wolf. Sword of freedom, sword of freedom? Chu Yang was also a little confused by Feng Polong's words. His face showed a puzzled look. He didn't seem to have such a swordsmanship. Chu Hang, you are still pretending to be innocent to cover up your despicable shamelessness. Feng Polong was even more upset. He directly said Chu Yang's evil nature. Can you make it clearer? Chu Yang didn't have a cheeky smile on his face. Feng Polong couldn't hold it in any longer. Chu Hang, he roared, you insulted the dean and even the leader of the 6 great academies. You challenged the dignity of the world and looked down on everything in the world. Weren't you practicing the sword of freedom and freedom? Don't you want to cut off all kinds of restraints? Do you really think I don't know anything? Let me tell you, Chu Hang, don't go too far. I'm going to turn hostile. So that's how it is. So be it then. Chu Yang thought about it for a moment. It did make sense, and there was indeed a common reason. He challenged all authority, despised all, and had no misgivings. Although he was happy and angry, wasn't that a type of freedom, a temporary freedom? What do you mean by that? That's the truth. Feng Polong's uneasiness made everyone suddenly understand. Chu Yang's actions earlier were not because he was crazy, but because he was practicing his swordsmanship. How shocking, how unexpected! He had deceived everyone. At this moment, Gong Xuanlong's pupils shrank. For the first time, he didn't have complete confidence. It was also the first time he was nervous. The pressure in his heart pressed down on every one of his nerve. He only saw that Chu Yang wanted to establish the dignity of the eastern wilderness. He didn't see this layer at all, and this layer was the most important. If Chu Yang's swordsmanship was strong enough, wouldn't it be easy for him to establish his dignity? Why would he pay such a huge price and offend the leaders of the 6 great academies? He had laughed at Chu Yang's unwise action. However, after seeing his true colors, he realized that he was a fool. He really couldn't stay calm because Chu Yang's scheme was too big. Sword of Freedom. Sword of Freedom. Chapter 2023. The Sword of Freedom. The Sword of Freedom? Lu Yunping was touched the most. His grandfather, Sage Peng's Peng Ming formula, was seeking freedom and transcendence. Chu Yang said that his grandfather's standard was too high, so it was difficult to transcend. It seemed that this was not a lie. Chu Yang really thought so and was doing so. Unbeknownst to everyone, Chu Yang wanted to transcend with the 6 courtyard masters, the leaders, and the East Continent as the standard, to obtain relative freedom and freedom. His cheeky smile is really a big illusion, fooling everyone. Lu Yunping couldn't help but say such a sentence. He completely agreed with Feng Pelong's point of view. Isn't that so? Wouldn't a cheeky person often not be valued by others? Xia Wanjin couldn't help but sigh. Previously, he also saw through Chu Yang's intentions. He could only sigh. Chu Hang is really Chu Hang. Unknowingly, he dug a big hole and fell into it without knowing it. Brother Goat. Shangguan Lan was also misled, and Xiao Guai was also misled. At this moment, they seemed to have realized Chu Yang's true colors. The parrot was also misled. It was very speechless. It turned out that it was also messing around, but the gap between it and Chu Yang was so big. In the midst of messing around, Chu Hang was actually doing something serious. He was really superior to 100 or 10,000 parrots. This divine bird must be more sophisticated in the future. It looked at the shocked reaction of the crowd and felt that it had found a bright road, and this was the real test. Not to mention them, in the closed stands, the inspector of the East Continent and the leaders of the 6 courtyard were also shocked at this moment. They had never thought of this. Therefore, in an instant, their evaluation of Chu Yang was infinitely improved. There was no longer any sneer in their hearts. They even reminded themselves that in the future, they should never be deceived by Chu Yang's illusion. The Ice Kuan was the most speechless one. It was speechless to the extreme. It had just reminded Chu Yang that it was not right to be cheeky, but now it had been slapped in the face. As expected of my master. He can actually explain it in such a way with such a cheeky smile. I'm convinced. I'm really convinced. Ice Kuan was completely defeated by reality and Chu Yang. He changed his words and said, "Master, please continue to smile." Chu Yang just shook his head. The Ice Kuan was right. Even if his mischievous smile was misunderstood, how could he be dignified if he always had a mischievous smile on his face? No matter how great the shock was, with the passage of time, everything would be completely erased by his mischievous smile. Chu Hang, why don't you say something? Why don't you fart? Feng Polong was still pursuing the matter. He was truly sullen. He had been looking forward to this battle, but it had ended just like that. You haven't reached that level yet. Of course, Chu Yang did not tell the truth. He needed people to be so shocked to ensure his dignity. Feng Polong was stunned on the spot. Then, the excitement on his face and all kinds of funny expressions disappeared. He did not even know that Chu Yang had walked out of the arena. It was not until the next match was about to continue that someone woke him up that he came back to his senses. He immediately went to Zhang Jian's side and asked, "What sword technique was that?" "The essence of the sword, the wound of the sword." After Zhang Jian finished speaking, he spoke again. "Indeed, you haven't reached that level. I've just touched it. He can already fight with me. Chapter 2024. That's why it's even more shocking. Zhang Jian's voice was filled with excitement. If you intend to be carefree, you won't be carefree. If you don't intend to be carefree, you'll be carefree instead. It's not that he doesn't know that he's practicing the sword, but he deliberately forgot that he's practicing the sword and completely integrated the sword into his body. Being a person and doing things is to practice the sword. Being a person and doing things is to practice the sword. Feng Polong was completely silent. After a long time, he said, I'm indeed not as good as him. To be precise, I'm far from him. I'm also not as good as him. He's the lighthouse in front of us. Zhang Jian's words shocked Feng Polong. He could not accept it at all, but in the end, he calmed down. This was because this was the truth. Zhang Jian had obtained great inspiration and enlightenment from Chu Yang. His swordsmanship would definitely improve. What he was curious about was, he practices the sword by being a person and doing things. He doesn't even realize it. Can he perform that kind of sword technique? Who knows? Zhang Jian's eyes suddenly became confused. Maybe he's the only one who knows, and he should be able to do it. At least it makes sense. That's why I said that he's our lighthouse. The sages of swordsmanship were naturally lighthouses, but in the end it was impossible for them to be as clear as Chu Yang. To Zhang Jian, Chu Yang was a real lighthouse. If Chu Yang knew about this, he would definitely divert his attention and introduce Zhang Jian to Xiao Chuyu so that the two of them, who were almost the same, would be confused. Chu Yang left the arena and heard the discussions of the crowd. He finally could not help but laugh in his heart. Is this the legendary illusion of the Chu clan? Everything is an illusion. Everything is an illusion. No wonder those people from the Sky Academy were so heartbroken. The so-called illusion of the Chu clan was so difficult to guard against. I really only saw Chu Hang playing a prank. I didn't see anything else, let alone think of this. Chu Hang. So this is Chu Hang. That's why I said it was strange. There were no typical cases, so how did he get such a nickname? Just now I also realized that the two words Chu Hang were so profound and so vivid. However, the people of the Sky Academy were confused. Why didn't we know that the illusion of the Chu clan could be understood in this way? At this moment, many people in the Sky Academy felt that their cultivation was too shallow and far from enough. They thought that they had already comprehended the Chu clan's illusion, but that was bullshit. At this moment, they felt as if they had just woken up from a dream. Naturally, this could not be spread out. As for the reason, only they knew. The 6 academies' combined tournament continued. After the top 16 were announced, some people had already withdrawn from the tournament before it even began. I quit. It was a woman's voice, Su Yiling. In an instant, everyone's gazes fell on Su Yiling. Even Chu Yang was a little surprised and couldn't help but look at Su Yiling. You don't have to be surprised. I'm not destined to be the main character in this 6 academies grand competition. After that, Su Yiling left with a swish, and her beautiful figure disappeared into the crowd. People were a little surprised, but as Su Yiling said, the main character in this 6 academies grand competition was indeed not her, but Chu Yang. Even if it was not Chu Yang, it should be Gongsun Long. Why should she risk her life for a slim hope? This was a rational choice. However, only Su Yiling withdrew from the top 16. The others seemed to not want to give up and wanted to try again. Perhaps many of them still had the idea that maybe they could defeat Chu Yang and Gongsun Long? As a result, there were only 15 people in the top 16 and one person would be given a bye. Everyone was very concerned about who would be given a bye, and the lucky one soon came out, Gongsun Long. It was Gongsun Long who was given a bye. Such a result caused an uproar again, because it was very advantageous for Gongsun Long. He could not only preserve his physical strength, but also preserve his strength to enter the next round, and he would be exposed less. Chapter 2025. Among the top 16, Chu Yang only knew Qin Burang, Long Xiaojun, and Long Xiaojun from the Heaven Sword Academy. He did not know Li Chou from the Nature Academy. The rest of the top 16 included Jing Wuming and Bo Honglai from the Heaven Devil Academy, Zhan Xinran from the Divine Firmament Academy, and Enai Chengda from the Heaven Sword Academy. Each of the 6 academies had its own seat, but the Heaven Sword Academy occupied most of the seat. Such a result indirectly showed that the Sky Academy was much stronger than the other 5 academies. After the first 3 matches of the top 16, it was finally Chu Yang's turn to fight in the 4th match. In the 4th match of the top 16, Chu Yang from the Heaven Sword Academy, please come to the arena. When the referee called out Chu Yang's name, the whole arena was in an uproar. The noise was like stormy waves in the ocean, constantly rising and falling. Immediately, countless eyes fell on Chu Yang. In the 6 academies alliance competition, no one could compare to this kind of momentum and attention. Even Gong Sunlong could not compare. Before, Gong Sunlong could be compared with Chu Yang. However, after the fight between Chu Yang and Feng Polong, the so-called illusion of the Chu clan appeared. Therefore, Gong Sunlong was no match for Chu Yang. From this point of view, it completely proved that the Ice Koan's criticism of Chu Yang was completely correct. If Chu Yang was not joking around, Gong Sunlong's momentum would not be as great as Chu Yang's. Bo Honglai from the Heaven Devil Academy, please come to the arena. As soon as the referee finished speaking, he immediately retreated far away. With a swoosh, accompanied by the sound of the air breaking, a young man with an obvious mole on his right cheek unfolded his body and landed in the arena in an extremely elegant manner. With a loud bang, Bo Honglai landed heavily on the arena. However, he was very vigilant and careful. He kept a distance from Chu Yang. Then, he stared at Chu Yang with a murderous look in his eyes. Demonic chi surged around him, and the flesh on his face wriggled strangely, as if it wasn't his own flesh and blood, but the flesh and blood of some other living being that had fused with it. So this is Bo Honglai? Chu Yang's next opponent. He looks extraordinary. 7th level of the life realm. If he takes a few more steps forward, he might become a half-sage. If we are only talking about realms, the gap between Chu Hang and him is really too big. I'm afraid this battle will be interesting to watch. Chu Hang seems to have never been able to defeat an opponent in the life realm. I wonder what kind of trick he'll use this time. What kind of joke is this? Will he be able to create a new miracle and defeat an opponent in the life realm with a mere first-tier transcendence realm cultivation? The crowd was in an uproar. Everyone was whispering to each other, highlighting the silence in the arena and the tension between Chu Yang and Bo Honglai. At this moment, the two of them were like being placed under a magnifying glass, being observed and studied by people. Chu Yang from the Sky Sword Academy. Chu Yang waved his sleeves and saluted Bo Honglai with a fist salute. Since he wanted to be a qualified representative of the Eastern Wilderness, he naturally couldn't make a mistake in etiquette. However, his behavior made many people feel uncomfortable and even shocked. This was obviously not the Chu Yang they knew. Therefore, some people thought that Chu Yang would stop playing tricks after his disguise was exposed and return to normal. You don't need to introduce yourself. I'm afraid there's no one who doesn't know you now. Bo Honglia's voice was a little hoarse. Are you deliberately changing your attitude to pressure me? Chu Yang laughed. If that's what you want to think, I don't want to change your mind. Bo Honglia's sinister eyes flickered. He looked at Chu Yang and said, "Your sarcasm is gone." "It's not gone. It's just hidden," Chu Yang said calmly. "I might be setting a trap again. Don't you think so?" Chapter 2026. Zhang Jian was not the only one who saw it. Many people saw it as well. Bo Honglai did not see it, but someone told him and specifically reminded him. He was very surprised when he heard it because it was too shocking. Until now, Chu Yang had only used his sword when he was dealing with Feng Polong. It was only one sword move. That sword move seemed ordinary, but it stunned many people. It made their emotions fluctuate, and they could not calm down for a long time. Practicing the sword? Chu Yang had come to his senses. He could practice the sword when he was doing things. He had done it imperceptibly. After he realized it, he even further comprehended it and hoped to cultivate the sword technique. He had thought about the reason why he could do it. It should be related to his 100 grotto heavens. His grotto heavens had once devoured Xiao Chuyu's sword technique. The all things sword transformation technique. When the 100 grotto heavens were deducing the all things sword transformation technique, the results were invisible on his body and reflected in his words and actions. Other than this, there was a greater possibility. The full martial soul of his twin destiny martial souls could operate everything on its own, just like how the heavenly Tao operated on its own. His Tao of the sword had accumulated a great deal of experience ever since he had returned from the God realm. Under such a formless influence, his Tao of the sword had become even more obvious. Yes, I'm practicing the sword, Chu Yang admitted. He was indeed practicing all of this. He had completely integrated his martial arts with his every move. Not only am I practicing the sword, but I'm also practicing the saber. Or maybe I'm just practicing the sword, just practicing the saber. Practicing the saber? Bo Honglia's pupils shrank again. Are you reminding me that you're also very good at saber techniques? Chu Yang smiled. I'm just practicing. Bo Honglia's eyelids twitched. The words, I'm just practicing, kept repeating in his mind. He did not completely understand Chu Yang's first sentence, but he completely understood the words, I'm just practicing. When Chu Yang was talking to him, he was practicing. He was practicing all the time. Such a person was really stressful and made one's scalp tingle. Bo Honglai felt like he was about to suffocate. Suddenly, he said to Zhang Jian, I'm just practicing my sword or my saber. What do you mean by that? Can you explain it to me? Among those present, Bo Honglai felt that only Zhang Jian could explain such a sentence. This was because Zhang Jian was recognized as a sword genius. Naturally, he did not feel ashamed. In front of a person like Chu Yang, no matter what he did, he would not lose face. Modesty would only win people's respect. Shua. All eyes were focused on Zhang Jian. Their eyes were bright as they eagerly waited for his answer. I can feel your hostility and killing intent. Zhang Jian's gaze was as sharp as a sword as he looked at Bo Honglai. He was awe-inspiring without being angry. It was as if his sword could kill at any moment. Do I need you to remind him? Bo Honglai looked at Chu Yang with a malicious gaze. He sneered and said, I don't think you need to remind him. He's already felt it, isn't he? As he said that, he turned to look at Zhang Jian. There are too many people who want him dead. The reason why he's standing here is to tell everyone that no matter if it's an open scheme or a conspiracy, it's useless. No one can kill him, and they'll all be trampled under his feet. Am I right? Are you feeling uneasy? Yes. You're a little confused. Even if you're just a little confused, it won't have much of an impact on this battle of life and death. However, you're very careful. You're doing your best to figure it out, right? Yes. Bo Honglai was so honest that it made people shudder. Their scalps went numb. Chapter 2027. There's no harm in telling you. After Zhang Jian thought for a moment, he said, But are you sure you want to know? Many people did not understand what he meant, but they noticed that Bo Honglai was struggling. The black mole on his right cheek was trembling. I'm sure I want to know. A look of struggle flashed across Bo Honglia's eyes as he said with certainty. To him, a sword is a saber and a saber is a sword. Everything in the world can be a sword, and everything can be a saber. In the end, Zhang Jian said with extreme admiration, his sword has cut off the shackles. To give a simple example, sabers and sword. In his eyes, you've solidified and distinguished sabers and swords. Chu Yang looked at Zhang Jian in surprise. He was a little shocked. He had once told Xiao Chuyu about this point of view, but Zhang Jian repeated it completely. Zhang Jian's swordsmanship was truly shocking. It seems that I'm right. Zhang Jian faced Chu Yang's gaze, and countless sword lights burst out from his eyes. When will we fight? Zhang Jian directly requested to fight. Everyone could feel his excitement and urgency, and they were surprised and shocked. Chu Yang hated warmongers like Zhang Jian, who was a fanatic for swordsmanship, but he had no choice but to maintain his image. He could only say, "Haven't we already fought?" Zhang Jian shook violently. With a rumble, a sword chi soared into the sky and formed a divine sword. It burst out with an extremely dazzling sword light, making it impossible for people to open their eyes. At this moment, they lost all their senses as if their 5 senses and 6 senses had been cut off. Fortunately, it did not take long. People returned to normal, and Zhang Jian also returned to normal. We have indeed fought and I lost. Too many people did not understand this sentence that came out of nowhere. However, Zhang Jian did not explain, and he would not explain either. As expected, I shouldn't have known the answer, and I shouldn't have asked. Bo Honglia's voice pulled everyone's attention back to the arena. His regret was obvious, and many people understood what he meant. If he hadn't asked Bo Hongli, he wouldn't have known how amazing Chu Yang was, and his confidence wouldn't have been shaken. At this moment, he was already in the arena. No matter how outstanding Chu Yang was, it was no longer important. What was important was that he had absolute confidence and the belief that he could win every battle. However, he had made an extremely wrong choice. Fortunately, I still have room to make mistakes. Bo Hongli did not bother to hide the murderous intent in his eyes. His tone was as cold as ice. He looked at Chu Yang and said, "You look like you're only in the first tier of the Transcendence Realm, but you're actually in the 3rd tier of the Transcendence Realm. The limit of your combat power is the Dead Spirit Realm. Am I right?" Chu Yang's heart trembled. In the end, someone had seen through him. If one often walks by the river, how can one's shoes not get wet? Although he tried his best to hide it, there were too many smart people in the world. When he appeared in front of people at high frequency, it was enough for them to observe him and make the right judgment. Fortunately, he had obtained the Dragon Saint's origin, and his cultivation had increased again. His current cultivation level could be said to be in the 6th tier of the Transcendence Realm. However, such an increase should not be enough for him to deal with a Life Realm martial artist. "You seem to be a little shaken?" Bo Hongli smiled. His smile was brilliant. He felt as if all the pressure in his heart had been completely released at that moment. He felt extremely relaxed, even a little playful. "Congratulations, you got part of it right." Chu Yang was still calm. "But is this enough to make you feel at ease?" Chapter 2028. I'll be one of your mourners. Do you agree? Bo Hongli was being too provocative. Given Chu Yang's character, he could not tolerate it. In an instant, countless gazes fell on Chu Yang. This time, Chu Yang's opponent was in the Life Realm after all. The gap between him and Bo Hongli was too big. Chu Yang was strong, but there was still a limit. What was more fatal was that Bo Honglia's goal was not to kill Chu Yang, but to force Chu Yang to use his trump card. Among the gazes that people cast over, there were affirmation, guesses, surprise, coldness, and curiosity. Naturally, there was no lack of indifference. Chu Yang's expression was very calm. His gaze fell on Bo Hongli, who was sneering, and he thought to himself, "This is the real obstacle, and also the method of the enemy in the dark." All of a sudden, his heart skipped a beat when a gaze fell on him. He did not turn his head, but he had already noticed everything. It was a pair of dead gray eyes that were staring at him. The pair of dead gray eyes were still alive, but they were even more terrifying than Zhang Jian's dead eyes. There was no trace of emotion in them. They were cold as a corpse's eyes. They were like the eyes of a dead person, and they were more like a walking corpse. It made one's hair stand on end. When the person's dead gray eyes looked at Chu Yang, it was as if he had died with a grievance. Before he died, he looked at his opponent with resentment as if he was cursing. Jing Wuming. Chu Yang had heard this name when he was in the Seven Wheels Devil Realm. He heard the name again when he was in the top 32, but it was only at this moment that he realized how terrifying the person was. He noticed Gongsun Long, Long Xiaojun, and the others, but he had not noticed Jing Wuming. At this moment, he was certain that Jing Wuming might be the most troublesome person in the 6 academies' joint competition. He was also the biggest obstacle. He could not even detect Jing Wuming's cultivation base. Let's deal with Bo Honglai first. Chu Yang calmed the shock in his heart and focused his attention on the present. It would be troublesome to deal with Bo Honglai. Are you scared? He asked Bo Honglai. Are you trying to pressure me? Yes, I am. Bo Honglai burst out laughing and said, I've already admitted it before. Why do you have to emphasize it again? This is an open conspiracy. What can you do even if I tell you? It's just that you have a great advantage, yet you're still nervous, aren't you? That's right, I'm extremely nervous. I even feel like I'm going to die in the next moment. You think your honesty will make me feel more pressured? Chu Yang said calmly, Do you think you've achieved your goal? Could it be that I have not achieved my goal? Bo Honglai retorted, You are at least having a headache over how to kill me and how to hide your strength, aren't you? He paused and smiled even more happily. Just thinking about this makes me very happy. This kind of Bo Honglai was absolutely annoying. However, Chu Yang had to admit that Bo Honglai was telling the truth. He was indeed feeling a little pressured and was thinking about how to win this round. He was only in the top 16. There were still the top 8 and the top 4. He would have to meet 2 more opponents before he could enter the finals. The 2 people he would meet later were likely to be in the life realm or even the half-saint realm. For example, Long Xiaojun. Chu Yang definitely did not want to meet Long Xiaojun, but he would probably meet him. The 6 great academies would definitely let him meet Long Xiaojun. In the Sky Academy, Chu Yang had threatened Long Xiaojun with the Thunder Calamity and forced Long Xiaojun to compromise. Almost everyone in the Sky Academy knew about this. How could the 6 great academies and his secret enemies not know about it? With the cultivation of a half-saint, he was definitely a holy disciple. However, Long Xiaojun stayed in the inner academy. Such a person was really a headache. Chapter 2029. There's still Jing Wuming to consider. Chu Yang realized that it would be extraordinarily difficult for him to emerge as the champion of the 6 Academies Alliance tournament and trample everyone from the 6 Academies under his feet. You should be done with what you wanted to say. His expression turned cold as if winter had arrived. The coldness slowly enveloped him. The smile on Bo Honglia's face grew wider and wider. His indifferent voice was filled with murderous intent as he said, I'm done talking. He spoke very slowly and his voice slowly spread. Then, he tilted his head slightly and smiled. Let me remind you. If your powers aren't as frightening as you think they are, I'm afraid you'll die at my hands. Don't you ever forget that. Swoosh. Chu Yang moved all of a sudden. Boundless dermic powers surged out like a tidal wave. He appeared in front of Bo Honglai in an instant and swept his leg toward Bo Honglia's head. That leg was wrapped in rolling dermic powers. The power was vast and vigorous, as if it was as heavy as a mountain or a star. It also seemed to carry a vast sea of dermic powers. It swept across, and the void seemed to be on the verge of exploding. The power was also very condensed. That leg was like a heavy hammer. It was clean and efficient, without the slightest bit of hesitation. Boom! A muffled sound was heard. Bo Honglai raised an arm to block the attack. The huge force blasted into him, forming ripples in the void. Bo Honglai's entire body trembled. The arena was like a mirror. With a crack, countless cracks appeared on it. That leg is really frightening. Even a dead spirit realm cultivator would probably be crushed by it. My hand hurts like hell. After blocking that attack, Bo Honglai raised his head to look at Chu Yang. The sneer at the corner of his mouth became even more mocking, and his expression became even colder. He looked like a cat toying with a mouse. He blocked Chu Yang's attack in close combat. He was very sure that the gap between his physical body and Chu Yang's was not very big. Of course, his level was a big factor, but it was also because of his extremely strong physical body. Aside from Chu Yang, Bo Honglai dared to claim that his physique was the best in the 6 academies. No one could compare to him. As for his secret, he would naturally not let anyone know about it. Hee, Chu Yang, do you think that my physical body is not strong enough and that I will be the one to measure your weight? However, the previous sentence was not enough to express his pride, so he added another sentence. When these words fell into everyone's ears, they couldn't help but be startled. There was a limit to Chu Yang's physical strength, and this limit was Bo Honglai's. Bo Honglai had managed to block the power of Chu Yang's whip kick with his physical strength. As he spoke, Bo Honglai did not just stand there and do nothing. His hand formed an eagle's claw, and his fingers let out a sharp whistle as he grabbed Chu Yang's ankle. Humph! Chu Yang coldly snorted. Then, he pulled his leg back. His body spun in midair, and then he swept his leg again. His leg shadows were illusionary, and each leg shadow was unusually heavy. Circles of ripples appeared in the void. It seemed as if each leg shadow could kick a mountain to smithereens. Not only were his legs heavy, but they were also extremely fast. Bo Honglai was not afraid at all. He turned sideways, and his 5 fingers changed from grabbing to stabbing. In an instant, his 5 fingers were like 5 divine swords, and it was as if Chu Yang was kicking the tip of the swords himself. Bang! 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 As soon as they came into contact, the 5 fingers immediately broke and shattered. Blood, flesh, and bones splattered everywhere. Ah! While Bo Honglai was screaming, Chu Yang's leg landed heavily on his temple with a bang, causing it to collapse. However, Chu Yang's leg was not strong enough. Chapter 20:30. Dust rose into the air as a massive force exploded, destroying the entire arena. Bo Honglai's upper body was stained with blood. He stood straight at the center of the explosion, his body as straight as a spear. His face was ferocious, and his eyes were as cold as a snake's. A green aura swirled around him. Broken bones could be seen coming out from the side of his head, and the sound of bones reconnecting could be heard. His sunken temples bulged little by little, and then they returned to their original state. Did it work? Bo Honglai's bone-chilling voice entered everyone's ears. Suddenly, an extreme chill swept over them, chilling them from head to toe. Bo Honglai looked at Chu Yang with a cold smile. Everyone's pupils shrank. Looking at Bo Honglai, who was half covered in blood, they couldn't make a sound. That was the strength of the life realm. Because they had comprehended the life chi, as long as they didn't die instantly, even if their bodies were crushed, their heads would still be intact. They would be able to recover immediately, which was equivalent to having an immortal body. Chu Yang's pupils shrank. Even though he had used a little more strength to hurt Bo Honglai, it was still useless. Bo Honglai could recover completely in the blink of an eye. This was indeed a tricky situation, and it was because of the difference in their realms. Bang! He didn't make a sound. He stomped his foot on the ground, and a layer of the destroyed arena suddenly caved in. Countless cracks appeared on the ground. He was like a flying sword, shooting over like lightning. With a boom, he punched out. The void shook violently, as if a mountain had fallen down. His momentum was terrifying, and it was frightening to the soul. After Chu Yang's body became a god, his every move was astonishingly powerful. Now that he was unleashing it, it was truly shocking. It was as if a prehistoric giant beast was stirring up the world and turning it upside down. Haha, that's exactly what I wanted. I can use this opportunity to test the strength of your body. Bo Honglai was extremely calm. With a rumble, billowing devil chi surged out from his body, like a beacon of fire rising into the sky. It was also like a volcano erupting, spewing thick smoke. Within his body, it was as if a volcano was erupting. Tremendous power and surging life energy swept out, forming visible waves that rushed in all directions. With a bang, he took a step forward. His arm was like a spear. With a violent tremble, he also threw a punch. On his fist, rolling demon chi formed a poisonous dragon drill, which went ahead of his fist to meet the attack. Rumble! Chu Yang's fist directly broke through the poisonous dragon drill. The devil chi burst apart and shot in all directions with a sizzling sound. With a muffled bang, the two fists collided. Bo Honglai's fist directly exploded like an egg. Blood, flesh, and bones splattered like egg yolk. Ka-cha-cha! The bones in Bo Honglai's right arm were completely shattered. In the end, his entire arm exploded. Even his shoulder was torn apart. Dong dong dong! He retreated. With every step he took, it was as if a heavenly pillar was descending from the heavens, causing the ground to rumble like a drum. But even so, he retreated to the edge of the arena before he could stop himself. Once he was sent flying out of the arena, it meant that he had lost. Bo Honglai had paid the price of serious injuries to withstand all of this. Barf! He couldn't help but spit out mouthfuls of blood, mixed with fragments of his internal organs. He didn't know how many bones in his entire body were broken. His spine was even broken into 7 or 8 pieces. Needless to say, his internal organs were severely injured. The intense pain caused his entire body to break out in cold sweat. What kind of divine power was this? Chapter 2031. Bo Honglai was deeply shocked. Before he fought with Chu Yang, he had been right to keep a low profile. He had been absolutely right. Boom! In just an instant, the chi of life surged. His broken bones were reconnected, his internal organs were restored, and his broken arm grew back. In the blink of an eye, he was back to his original state. Even his face was ruddy, and he did not look weak at all. Haha, is it useful? Bo Honglai could not help but laugh again. He was very happy. Chu Yang's physical body was strong enough, but could it kill him? Chu Yang's eyes were cold. The words, "Is it useful?" were the biggest provocation, and it was quite grating to him. What? You're angry? Bo Honglai walked back step by step and sneered. So what if your physical body can crush mine? Do you think I only rely on my physical body when I fight with others? Do you think I don't know anything else? Boom! A monstrous chi of life surged out in a vast and mighty manner. That kind of chi of life emitted a powerful pressure, which made many people's expressions change in horror. Was this the chi of life? Was the difference between Fa-Li and chi of life actually so big? Everyone knew that if Dharma power was wood, then death chi would be iron, and chi of life would be steel. Besides, chi of life was full of endless vitality, but that was only for the warrior himself. To other opponents, chi of life was an extremely domineering and terrifying power. There was absolutely no vitality in it, only death. Chu Yang's face was very serious. The quality of his Dharma power was at most comparable to death chi, but it could not compete with chi of life. Roar! In the shocking dragon roar, the majestic chi of life condensed behind Bo Honglai, quickly forming a huge black demonic dragon. The demonic chi around it was very violent. It coiled, and a great pressure instantly spread between heaven and earth. It was as if a real demonic dragon had descended. When the chi of life was cultivated to the extreme, it could even create a real dragon. Bo Honglai had not reached such an amazing level, but the demonic dragon formed by the chi of life was amazing enough. Another dragon? Chu Yang looked at the devil dragon and immediately thought of Yu Hualong. Then he thought of the world that Dragon Sage had created, and the essence of Dragon Sage. Heart-thumping, he sent out a massive wave of seawater to attack the devil dragon. When the ocean and the demonic dragon met, it was as if the dragon was wreaking havoc in the ocean. This attack did not seem to have any destructive power at all. Then, the ocean water suddenly turned into a blue sword that pierced into the dragon's belly. After that, the entire ocean disappeared. All of the seawater and all of the power gathered at one point on the sword, which directly pierced through the demonic dragon and cut it in half. However, the demonic dragon did not collapse right away. The life energy within it gathered again to form another demonic dragon. Not only could the chi of life make a cultivator immortal, it was equivalent to having an immortal body. This was also applicable to spells. Even if the spell technique was destroyed, it would instantly recover. Those in the life realm had comprehended the mystery of life and were extremely powerful. Below the life realm, no matter how strong one was, there was no way they could overturn or defeat those in the life realm. That was a good thing. Even if one had a lot of wealth, they couldn't even buy medicine to cure regret, let alone buy back their life. At that moment, Chu Yang was facing such a helpless situation. Is it going to work? Bo Honglai sneered again. He was not in a hurry, because his most important task was to force Chu Yang to show his strength bit by bit, and reveal all of Chu Yang's trump cards bit by bit. Chapter 2032. Would it work? It was another round of mockery and provocation. However, this undoubtedly reflected Chu Yang's powerlessness, which made many people feel complicated. Shangguan Lan, Lil Guai, and the others were naturally worried about Chu Yang. After all, he was a little too tricky. His opponent was not even as strong as someone who could not be killed. He was already in an invincible position. If Chu Yang did not have any other tricks up his sleeve, there would only be two outcomes. If Chu Yang admitted defeat, he could save his life. If he continued to be stubborn, he would definitely be killed by Bo Honglai. However, everyone realized that Chu Yang absolutely did not agree with this. Chu Yang was even more different from before. During the battle with Bo Honglai, he almost did not speak. Sometimes his face was cold, sometimes his face was solemn, and sometimes his brows were furrowed and then relaxed. His expression became very relaxed, without a trace of panic or dejection, not to mention despair. How could he be so calm and collected? After that, many people realized that until now, Chu Yang still had not used his best swordsmanship. They were shocked that Chu Yang was still holding back. Of course, Bo Honglai knew this because he had an extremely important goal: to determine the extent of Chu Yang's swordsmanship. It's time to put some pressure on him. Otherwise, he won't be able to use his swordsmanship at all. Bo Honglai's eyes turned cold. With a thought, the demonic dragon roared and swung its tail in the air. With endless demonic power, it pounced toward Chu Yang. The dragon's claws were like heavenly hooks. They emitted a humming sound with endless sharpness that poured into people's ears, making them tremble involuntarily. Rumble! Magic power surged, forming billowing seawater. Chu Yang still used the same technique that Yu Hualong used before. He transformed into a vast ocean and went up to meet the attack. The scene of the demonic dragon stirring up the sea appeared again. The seawater condensed again and concentrated on one point, forming a vine that pierced into the demonic dragon. In the blink of an eye, the vine exploded again, as if it had turned into seeds. The seeds used the demon dragon's body as the soil. They absorbed the energy from the demon dragon's body, sprouted, and grew. In an instant, towering ancient trees burst forth, almost tearing the demon dragon apart. Such a change made everyone feel a sense of amazement. Waves of cries of surprise rang out, because they realized that quite a bit of their life energy had been consumed. Such a method was truly ingenious. Is it useful? Bo Honglai was also shocked, but he immediately calmed down. Roar. A loud and clear dragon roar instantly resounded through the world, deafening even the deaf. Under his will, the demonic dragon condensed once again, and with a violent stir, the towering ancient trees were all snapped in half, and some were even uprooted. Chu Yang's eyes shone brightly as he looked at it, but he didn't seem like he was going to do anything. He simply watched as the leaves, branches, and trunks quickly withered. Then, with a loud bang, a raging fire erupted. Everything turned into flames that burned the demon dragon. Roar. The dragon's roar shook the sky. The demon dragon in midair was like a real dragon that was being burned by the flames. It writhed in midair, but it was useless. The flames burned with crackling sounds, and the sizzling sound of oil burst out. Soon, the aroma of meat filled the air, but it soon turned into the smell of burnt meat. It didn't take long. The wriggling demon dragon was completely burned in a short time, leaving nothing behind. The flames also completely disappeared, but it had completely burned away Bo Honglia's life energy, stunning everyone once again. Chapter 2033. The vines spread out again, turning into the power of wood to fight against the aura of life. They even absorbed the aura of life to grow into a towering tree. In the end, there was another shocking change. The power of wood suddenly turned into the power of fire, burning away the demonic dragon and the aura of life. The continuous changes in his powers forcefully neutralized the aura of life. Every change showed Chu Yang's deep understanding of the way of water, way of wood, and way of fire. The three changes followed the way of the heavens and the way of the five elements. Water gave birth to wood, and wood gave birth to fire. It was a seamless combination. Every change was not only logical, but also natural. It was like a housewife using crude ingredients to create an unparalleled delicacy. It could be said that he had done it to the extreme. Everyone could only sigh in admiration. They were deeply shocked by Chu Yang's understanding of the ways of water, wood, and fire. Chu Yang could not help but smile. I've reached the 6th tier of the Transcendence realm. I can still do it. This should be called the three extremes heaven of the five elements. According to the general principles of the lightning laws, the power of lightning could be transformed into the power of the five elements. The power of the five elements could then evolve into bells, towers, buildings, or even the azure dragon, white tiger, vermilion bird, and black tortoise. He could have done this long ago. The only difference was that he had applied his understanding of the lightning laws to the way of water. In addition, he had devoured the world of the Dragon Saint and increased his cultivation level. His powers had increased once more. These changes could finally neutralize the aura of life. His powers were wood, the aura of death was iron, and the aura of life was steel. When the power of water turned into the power of wood, it was like turning into iron. When the power of wood turned into the power of fire, it was like turning into steel. Only then could it be on par with the aura of life. Chu Yang was extremely clear about this. Is it useful? Bo Honglia's mocking and provocation rang out again. He seemed to want to keep saying this for 1,000 years. His face twisted as he sneered. I admit that you're very shocking, but what's the point of using so much effort to just barely neutralize my aura of life? Do you think I'll give you another chance? For example, this time. Puss. Puss. Bo Honglai made a grabbing motion with his hand. Life energy surged out and quickly formed shadows. They covered the sky and covered the earth as they rushed toward Chu Yang. Before they arrived, from within the shadow, numerous thin shadows separated. Some were like swords, some were like spears, and some were like vines. Like 10,000 arrows shot out at the same time, they pierced toward Chu Yang's vital points from all directions. Every shadow was exceptionally sharp, as if they were swallowing and spitting out sword chi, but they were incomparably cold. This was the power of darkness, and it contained a great invasive power. Once one was pierced by it, the consequences would be unimaginable. In an instant, countless shadows covered the heavens and the earth, enveloping that space with an extremely shocking momentum. Shwa. This time, Chu Yang seemed to know how powerful it was, but his movements were still calm. He exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. After that, he didn't try to defend himself. Instead, he used the 5 elements' chaotic steps and jumped out of the encirclement as if he had jumped out of the 5 elements. In an instant, he seemed to have rushed out of the sky and into another world. It was incredible. He ran around the battlefield with extreme elegance and agility. However, he did not display the characteristics of his mana. There was only a human figure that was dodging. The attacks of the shadow thorns were very fierce. It was like an army of 100,000 besieging an overlord. The overlord was already surrounded on all sides. Chapter 2034. Aren't you going to use your swordsmanship? Chu Yang's footwork was so exquisite that Bo Honglai even found that Chu Yang's footwork had changed under pressure. It became more mysterious, as if he had comprehended something. Bo Honglai did not dare to delay any longer. Only when he forced Chu Yang into a desperate situation could Chu Yang use his swordsmanship and his hidden trump cards. Dragon Binding Shadow. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. The shadows became darker, and the billowing devil chi appeared. The devil chi lingered around them and gathered to form a devil shadow that was almost 10,000 feet long. It covered the sky and devoured the surrounding light. The world suddenly darkened. Swish! The devil shadow pounced on Chu Yang like a fisherman with a harpoon or a hunter with a bow and arrow. It also opened its arms like a devil god, wanting to give Chu Yang a deathly hug. This time, Chu Yang had nowhere to run. He seemed to be really desperate. He stopped and stood there motionless with his hands behind his back. However, when the devil shadow pounced on him, a light shield appeared around him to protect him. Bang! 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 The demonic shadow didn't manage to break through the light barrier, so it immediately split into countless parts and pierced through the light barrier. A series of muffled sounds rang out incessantly. However, no matter how fierce the attacks were, they could not do anything to the thin light shield at all. Light! Chu Yang spat out a word. Immediately, countless rays of light burst out from his body. He seemed to have turned into a sun. The devil shadow was like the night, and when the day came, it immediately retreated. All of them disappeared silently. How could Bo Honglia's comprehension of light and darkness be comparable to Chu Yang's? At this time, he had not used his light and darkness skills, such as the straight fist of light and the depraved fist. However, this was not the reason why he could resist the devil shadow. After all, the devil shadow was condensed by the chi of life and had the essence of darkness. You? Bo Honglai was finally horrified. His playful expression disappeared completely. His face was full of horror and disbelief. He really didn't know how Chu Yang had done it. Chu Yang didn't pay any attention to Bo Honglai. Bo Honglai was no longer of any value to him. Chu Yang had already sensed the power of the life realm through him, as well as the power of the life realm. Whoosh! The world suddenly turned dark, and then a beam of light burst out. It was like the first beam of light in the world. This beam of light was extremely dazzling. It flew towards Bo Honglai and pierced through his throat with a chi sound. Light, this was the speed of light. How could Bo Honglai possibly resist? Ha ha! A bloody hole appeared in Bo Honglia's throat, and blood gushed out. Perhaps it was because of the air entering his throat, but a strange sound came from his throat. The spurting of blood quickly weakened. He opened his eyes wide and said with great difficulty, You, how did you kill me? Until now, he still didn't know what Chu Yang had done, or how he had been killed. Of formation. Chu Yang didn't try to hide it. He didn't like someone who was about to die. In fact, he hated it. However, he couldn't bear to refuse a dying man's request. Of formation. Bo Honglia's eyes, which were already wide open, suddenly widened again. He shuddered. You're already a level 9 formation master. That's right. Chu Yang nodded. You're just an illusion of the Chu clan after all. I really didn't deserve to die. With a bang, Bo Honglai fell to the ground and died before he could finish his sentence. He was no longer breathing. Chu Yang's powers couldn't kill Bo Honglai, but the formation he had set up had the same amount of power. It was able to destroy the chi of life and kill Bo Honglai. A level 9 formation master naturally had the ability to kill a life realm being. Chapter 2035. Bo Honglai was dead, and Chu Yang walked out of the arena. The battle had come to an end. No one had expected such an outcome. Although many people had guessed that Bo Honglai would die, they had never expected that he would die in such a way. They could imagine that Bo Honglai had died under Chu Yang's sword, but they had never thought that Bo Honglai would die under Chu Yang's formation. The Chu clan's illusion was perhaps the best explanation. When everyone thought that Chu Yang was best at swordsmanship, they suddenly realized that Chu Yang was actually best at formations. According to the level, a 9th level formation master was comparable to a life realm expert. However, in reality, a 9th level formation master was more precious and powerful. Of course, a saint level formation master was also more powerful than an ordinary saint. Although a formation master had to set up a formation in order to display its power, in the later stage, when a formation master became stronger, it would be much easier to set up a formation. This was just like Chu Yang. If he had not said it just now, who would have known that he had set up a formation? It was only when he explained the reason that everyone understood. When he was hiding just now, he had already set up a formation. The formation was set up in an extremely hidden manner. Chu Yang used Bo Honglia's demonic shadow and the power of darkness to set up the formation silently, making it even harder for people to notice. The Chu clan's illusion. It's really the Chu clan's illusion. Who can be sure that Chu Hang is best at formations? This was really hard to say. Chu Yang had hidden too deeply, and his knowledge was too diverse. It was really too difficult to judge. At this moment, whether it was Feng Polong, Zhang Jian, Chen Burang, Long Xiaojun, or Chu Yang's enemy, Gongsun Long, they could not calm down for a long time. Chu Yang was now a 9th level formation master. Perhaps he was already on his way to becoming a saint-level formation master. They suspected that Chu Yang was already half a step into the saint realm in terms of formations. He was already comparable to a half-saint. From this, they could understand why he dared to be so arrogant before and even dared to provoke the leaders of the 6 great academies. The dean of the 6 great academies fell silent. In the closed stands, the inspector of East Continent and the leaders of the 6 academies were silent. Even they had underestimated Chu Yang. Whoever dared to call him a wild dog deserved to die. Unlike them, the ordinary students were discussing animatedly, expressing their shock in various ways. A 9th grade array master. Oh my heavens! Chu Hang did it without making a sound. When he revealed himself, he almost scared me to death. Why do I feel that if I don't curse, I won't be able to express my shock? It's hard to calm down. I want to curse too. Does he have a bottom line? His swordsmanship was so shocking, his physical body was so shocking, and his magic power was so shocking. He had all sorts of heaven-defying and shocking skills, and even his formations were so shocking. Even if you say that Chu Hang is a saint-grade array master now, I wouldn't be surprised. What a terrifying illusion of the Chu clan! Who can see through Chu Hang? If he's seen through, how can he continue to dig holes? This is exciting. He's a ninth-grade array master. I'm afraid the others will tremble in fear. Even if their levels are much higher than Chu Hang's, Chu Hang still has his trap. Moreover, each trap is bigger and deeper than the last. Who knows who will fall into them? Chu Yang's reputation of tricking others was confirmed. In the future, no one would believe him if he said that he didn't trick others. In addition, he reckoned that in the future, a casual sentence from him would make people think for a long time. Otherwise, if they didn't waste their brain cells and fell into the trap, what should they do? Chapter 2036. The grand competition of the top 16 continued. Chu Yang was in the fourth match, and there were only 7 matches in the top 16. Su Yiling had withdrawn, and Gong Sun Long was lucky enough to have a bye. Generally speaking, the last 2 matches didn't have much of an impact, and they barely attracted anyone's attention. It was probably because the battle between Chu Yang and Bo Honglai was so shocking that some people had no impression of the last 2 matches at all. After the top 16, it was the top 8. The top 8 had already been decided. Except for Chu Yang, the remaining 7 were Chen Burang, Li Chou, Long Xiaojun, Jing Wuming, and Gong Sun Long. There were 2 other people that Chu Yang did not know. One was Wang Feng, and the other was Jiang Dingran. The top 8 would draw lots for each group. After that, they would draw lots again, and so on. This kind of drawing lots was actually more exciting, because no one knew who would be in the next group. During the short pause, the battlefield was reorganized, and the arena was rebuilt. The competition of the top 8 immediately began. From the top 16 to the top 8, there was no time for communication or preparation. The competition was extremely intense. Of course, this was not the case for the top 16 and the top 8. It was the same for the previous matches. The whole process of the competition was to be completed in one breath. During this period, there was no time to prepare, no time to wait, and no time to change or prepare. Naturally, there was less suspense, but it was still intense and tragic. The horn was blown and the drums sounded. The referee was in the center of the arena. Under the watchful eyes of the audience, he began to draw lots. When the referee's hand reached into the drawing lot, everyone's eyes were fixed on it. The first name was announced, and the judge showed the name to the crowd. When Chu Yang saw this name, his eyelids could not help but twitch. This name was Jing Wuming. Compared to him, people were very disappointed when they saw this name. Although Jing Wuming was quite famous, he was far inferior to Chu Yang and Gong Sun Long. It could be said that lifeless Jing didn't have much of a presence, so even when his name appeared, no one seemed to be able to find him. The first match of the top 8, Jing Wuming, please come to the arena. The referee's voice resounded in the arena. Jing Wuming did not appear, and Chu Yang could not even find Jing Wuming. Then, the referee drew lots again. This time, when he showed the name to the audience, there was an uproar immediately. It's Chu Hang, it's Chu Hang. The first match is Chu Hang. That's great. I'm afraid that this match will be extremely amazing. Good my ass. After watching Pit Chu's, I can't watch the rest of it. That's right. After scamming Chu, I'm afraid the rest of the matches will be lacking in interest. When Chu Yang saw his name, he shook his head and smiled bitterly. My luck is really out of this world. I didn't want to meet Jing Wuming, but I met Jing Wuming. The first match of the top 8, Chu Yang, please come to the arena. When the referee called out Chu Yang's name, all eyes fell on him again. He had no choice but to go to the arena. It's the top 8 now. If I defeat Jing Wuming, I'll be in the top 4. Chu Yang stood in the arena, thinking about his own matters. He thought to himself, I'm not far away from entering the finals, from winning the championship, and from standing at the top of the 6 academies. It won't be long. This made him excited. He thought to himself, Jing Wuming feels very dangerous, but it doesn't mean that I can't defeat him. Jing Wuming, please come to the arena. Chu Yang had already gone to the arena, but Jing Wuming had not yet appeared. The referee shouted again. However, there was still no reply. Instead, there was an extremely gloomy and cold feeling. It could even be said that it was eerie. At this moment, it spread out like a wave, causing the noise in the entire place to recede like the tide. Gradually, it became quiet. Soon, there was not even the slightest sound. Chapter 2037. Boom. The people there immediately dispersed. They were extremely shocked. Most of the people present were also surprised. It seemed that no one knew how this ghostly figure appeared. However, everyone knew that he was there. It was just that no one noticed him, much less knew that he was there. It was as if he was standing there in a different space-time dimension from everyone else. That was naturally Jing Wuming. Jing Wuming's clothes were definitely not luxurious. They were extremely simple, but they were clean. His eyes were like a pool of stagnant water, and he was like a walking corpse walking in the human world. Therefore, it was as if a zombie suddenly appeared in the crowd. How could it not be scary? Jing Wuming's face was not outstanding, and his gaze was dim. When his dim gaze slowly swept across the crowd, everyone subconsciously wanted to avoid it, causing the crowd to instantly fall into chaos. This is Jing Wuming like this. Chu Yang's hair was also somewhat numb. He was not afraid of people like Xiao Qiyu and Zhang Jian, who were cold and unapproachable. However, Jing Wuming made him feel a chill from the bottom of his heart. Xiao Qiyu and Zhang Jian were extremely devoted to the sword. They focused all their energy and passion on the sword and did not allow themselves to waste any of their energy on other things. They were reserved to the extreme, and their attention was also focused to the extreme, causing them to be like that. Jing Wuming was obviously such a person as well. However, he was even more excessive than Xiao Qiyu and Zhang Jian, so much so that he looked like a walking corpse. It was very scary. In addition, Chu Yang could feel that Jing Wuming did not practice the sword, but the saber. That's a very dangerous saber, an extremely dangerous saber. In an instant, Chu Yang's muscles tensed up, and his heartstrings were also tensed to the extreme. The danger he sensed in his heart had also reached its peak. He looked at Jing Wuming and only saw blood and death. Jing Wuming naturally sensed Chu Yang's presence. He glanced at Chu Yang with a dim gaze, then walked straight towards the ring. He did not walk quickly, and every step he took was not precise. It was as if he was a dead man being controlled by some kind of power as he walked towards the stage. Tap, tap, tap. The footsteps were very light, but when they fell into the ears of the people, it was as if a knife was placed on their necks. They couldn't help but tremble, and some people were even scared to the point of peeing. Jing Wuming didn't walk very fast, and no one dared to rush him. The time he needed was definitely not too long. Finally, he walked onto the stage and stood in front of Chu Yang. His dim eyes fell on Chu Yang as he sized up Chu Yang. Suddenly, he opened his mouth and said, "You're very nervous." "I'm a little nervous," Chu Yang admitted, and the whole audience was in an uproar. They couldn't believe that the fearless Chu Hang would actually be nervous. This was simply a shocking anecdote. "I know you're very strong, very, very strong." Chu Yang did not care about the crowd's reaction. There are many people who are proficient in the saber, but you should be the only one in the world like you. He paused, straightened out his thoughts, and then said, "I admire you to the extreme. When I think of your unparalleled saber skills, I even feel fear and horror." If it was another person who received such praise from Chu Yang and admitted that he was inferior, he would definitely laugh a few times. However, Jing Wuming did not have any reaction. He suddenly said, "It seems that your big brother should be Chu Fei." Big brother? Chapter 2038. It seems that your big brother is Chu Fei. Jing Wuming's words seemed to convey that he knew his big brother. Chu Yang was extremely surprised. Who is the person who kidnapped your big brother? Jing Wuming's dead eyes suddenly emitted a cold light. At this moment, his body was like a walking corpse. Endless murderous intent rushed out from his body like a flash flood and filled the entire place. He was like a god of death descending to the world. At this moment, the entire place seemed to be frightened like a giant. Chu Yang was also frightened. Jing Wuming's furious appearance made it seem as if he was his big brother's brother and not him. Big brother is really capable to be able to make friends with such a person. Chu Yang no longer had any doubts. Jing Wuming was definitely not an enemy. He was his big brother's brother, a friend of life and death. However, he did not know how his big brother could become friends with Jing Wuming, a friend of life and death, and become brothers. He was really curious and even more admiring. It was definitely not an easy thing to get Jing Wuming's approval. Before this, everyone in the 6th campus knew that his big brother was Chu Fei. However, Jing Wuming did not believe it. He had personally interacted with Chu Yang and confirmed that Chu Yang was Chu Fei's younger brother. From this point, it could be seen that Jing Wuming was definitely an extremely cautious person. He did not believe in rumors. He did not even believe in what he saw. He only believed in what his heart saw. I will get rid of them. As Chu Yang spoke, he also sent a message to Jing Wuming with his soul. I still don't know who they are. Naturally, no one knew about the secret conversation between him and Jing Wuming. Aren't you Lu San? With Jing Wuming's words, Chu Yang finally understood why Jing Wuming would ask such a question. There were not many people who knew that he was Lu San. I am Lu San, but Lu San might not know. A look of surprise flashed across Jing Wuming's dead eyes. Of course, he had already understood Chu Yang's meaning and guessed what Chu Yang had done. He had to admit that Chu Yang was very resourceful. You are indeed Chu Fei's brother. Jing Wuming's murderous intent completely retracted back into his body. It was as if a murderous demon king had been locked up again. Everyone present let out a long sigh of relief. At this moment, they finally understood why Chu Hang was nervous. It was because Jing Wuming was really too scary. However, what they did not understand was why Jing Wuming had placed Chu Yang's elder brother in front of him and used Chu Fei to define Chu Yang. This was because, logically speaking, Chu Fei was far inferior to Chu Yang. It should be Chu Fei who was proud of Chu Yang, not Chu Yang who was proud of his elder brother. However, there was no doubt that in Jing Wuming's heart, Chu Fei was definitely an amazing person and a person worthy of respect. As for why Jing Wuming had such an opinion, Chu Yang was extremely curious. However, he did not ask because Jing Wuming would definitely not say. Jing Wuming was definitely not a talkative person. If he were to tell a story, he would talk too much. I'm dying of curiosity. Chu Yang finally said it out loud. Then let's kill the curiosity. As expected, this was the result. Chu Yang could only smile bitterly. Perhaps only a person like Jing Wuming could say such words so easily. Kill the curiosity. Was the curiosity something that could be killed just because he wanted to? Are you older, or is my elder brother older? Chu Yang opened his mouth again. I'm older. Little brother greets elder brother. Chu Yang directly called Jing Wuming elder brother and said, I must win this round. Elder brother, can you go easy on me? What if I can't? Jing Wuming was like a walking corpse. It was impossible to see any emotion on his face. This sentence was also cold, making Chu Yang feel very pressured. Chapter 2039. Phew. Chu Yang heaved a long sigh of relief. One of them will die. This was Jing Wuming's answer. Definitely, none of them will die. Chu Yang finally showed his character, even if his opponent was Jing Wuming. Reason. Because I am Chu Yang. That sounds like a pretty good reason. When Jing Wuming said this, everyone was stunned, because they could hear a smile in his words. Jing Wuming was smiling. Jing Wuming was like a walking corpse, but his words were actually filled with emotion. It was really amazing. Chu Yang also smiled. This is a pretty good reason. I am the big brother, you have to listen to me. Jing Wuming's sudden words made Chu Yang's face stiffen. This was a very good reason. The young should listen to the older, and this was definitely the truth for Jing Wuming. I am the wild dog. Chu Yang stated his reasons. He wasn't speaking alone. He was speaking on behalf of many people in the eastern wilderness. You are a bit too nosy. Jing Wuming's words were not wrong. Chu Yang did not have much ability, but his words were big. How could he represent the eastern wilderness? How could the eastern wilderness rise up by only one person? The rise of the eastern wilderness required many people with unyielding character in the eastern wilderness. Even if Chu Yang succeeded, it would only give the eastern wilderness a source of pride in the eastern continent, a fulcrum. But in the end, whether it was the eastern wilderness or the rise of a country, it could not only depend on one person. Because I am very capable. Chu Yang naturally could not lie. Jing Wuming was right, but he had to do what he had to do. Is that so? Then let me see how capable you are. When he heard this, Chu Yang realized that he had been tricked. Jing Wuming was clearly waiting for him to say this. He laughed awkwardly. Big brother, this isn't good, right? Shua. Jing Wuming used his hand as a knife and swung it through the air. It was straightforward and extremely simple. Nothing seemed to have happened, at least in the eyes of the crowd. However, Chu Yang was completely different. This slash was a spiritual attack that went straight for his mind. At this moment, Chu Yang had already turned into an ox and was performing the act of butchering an ox. Chu Yang's spiritual body was a cow, while Jing Wuming was a butcher. This Jing Wuming was extremely skilled. It could be said that wherever the hand touched, the shoulder leaned, the foot stepped, the knee pressed, the sound of the slash resounded, and the sound of the slash resounded. There was no sound that did not hit the mark. Even if Chu Yang's spiritual body was extremely condensed and was like a divine spark, it was very, very difficult to explode and obliterate it, and it was even more difficult to disintegrate it. However, against Jing Wuming, it was still useless and was quickly disintegrated. Skilled skills. In just an instant, Chu Yang's spiritual body was completely disintegrated. Like an ox, the skin, flesh, tendons, bones, and so on were completely disintegrated. Chu Yang did not know how Jing Wuming did it. He was extremely shocked. This could be said to be miraculous. You are indeed capable. In the spiritual world, Jing Wuming's voice sounded. After he had completely disintegrated Chu Yang's spiritual body, he found the core of Chu Yang's spiritual body. Jing Wuming seemed to be unable to disintegrate the core of Chu Yang's spiritual body. Chu Yang's spiritual body was like a divine spark. Of course, it had inherited the characteristics of the 100 grotto heavens, and its core was the 100 grotto heavens. It seems that you don't need me to return to my original state. Chu Yang indeed did not need it. The 100 grotto heavens were the core of his spiritual body. The disintegrated spiritual body only needed to enter the 100 grotto heavens and be reconstructed. This was like Chu Yang's clone. As long as his original body was not destroyed, the clone would not be destroyed. Chapter 2040. It was as if an ox had been dismembered, and it was unforgettable. How could he not understand how his psyche had been formed? The formation of his psyche was equivalent to the formation of his godhood. The principle behind it was the combination and arrangement of magical laws, and the resulting stable structure. Because of that, he was able to understand the profundities of the magical laws in his godhood. The process of reassembling his psyche had deepened his understanding and understanding of it. Chu Yang's psyche recovered, and he couldn't help but complain, "I say, big bro, can't we go easy on him?" Jing Wuming's attack was truly vicious. Swish. Lifeless Jing didn't pay attention to Chu Yang. He waved his hand again and cut Chu Yang's spiritual body into two halves. One half of it was flowing water, and the other half was raging fire, and the other was burning fiercely. Then, it changed into night and day, moon and sun, yin and yang. Then, everything returned to normal. Jing Wuming's chop was the yin-yang cleaving dawn and dusk, which divided yin and yang. Chu Yang's Tao of Taiji and Wuji contained such principles, so it didn't affect him much. I say, big bro, Yang Qi said, let's go easy on him. Chu Yang's scalp went numb. Jing Wuming was simply too vicious. His psyche was like a godhood, but he could cut it in half with ease. At this moment, he could handle it, but he might not be able to in the next moment. 4 quadrants. Jing Wuming spat out 2 words. With a horizontal and vertical hand chop, he cut Chu Yang's spirit body into 4 parts, forming the vermilion bird, black tortoise, azure dragon, and white tiger. 4 quadrants from yin and yang. Of course, this wasn't a problem for Chu Yang. His psyche recovered, and his psyche trembled. 4 quadrants yin-yang bottle. Chu Yang finally understood what Jing Wuming was doing. He was reminding him of Gong Suanlong's strength, and what he was good at. Buzz buzz buzz. In his spiritual world, Jing Wuming transformed and a treasure bottle appeared. There was no yin and yang on it, nor were there the 4 divisions. However, the mouth of the bottle was like a black hole, erupting with a great suction force, wanting to swallow Chu Yang and even Chu Yang's entire spiritual world. This was an indescribable devouring power. As expected. It really is the yin-yang 4 symbols vase. Chu Yang was shocked, but he also completely understood. In order to reassure Jing Wuming, he immediately activated 100 grotto heavens and roared, "Freeze! Buzz buzz buzz!" His body trembled violently, layer after layer of heavenly passages appeared at his lower abdomen, erupting with dazzling radiance. In an instant, he seemed to have transformed from a speck of dust into a star. The vase could suck in dust, but it definitely couldn't devour a star. Chu Yang easily blocked the astonishing suction force from the treasure bottle. At this moment, from the pitch-black mouth of the vase, a red snake's forked tongue suddenly emerged. The entire vase suddenly turned into a huge, illusory snake, rushing over with a swoosh. The huge snake's mouth seemed to want to swallow the entire world. With a crunch, it swallowed Chu Yang into its stomach. The huge snake was too blurry, and it collapsed in an instant. Chu Yang escaped and appeared in his own spiritual world. What kind of snake is this? Chu Yang already understood each of Jing Wuming's intentions. The yin and yang and quadrants of the 4 quadrants yin-yang bottle were just a cover, an illusion. Even the vase was a cover. The essence of the 4 quadrants yin-yang bottle was a snake. Chapter 2041. I don't know. Jing Wuming's answer disappointed Chu Yang. It could be the Heaven Devourer serpent. Jing Wuming hesitated for a moment, then added, "It's also possible that the Heaven Devourer serpent is just a facade, and that Gong Sunlong has the Heaven Devourer Great Emperor's inheritance." The Heaven Devourer Great Emperor. Chu Yang's pupils constricted. The heavenly spirit world's great emperors were equivalent to the sovereigns of the gods' world. He didn't need to know who the Heaven Devourer Great Emperor was. Although there were differences in strength between great emperors and sovereigns, anything related to a great emperor was shocking. After all, a great emperor was a peerless existence. Gong Sunlong had obtained the inheritance of a great emperor. There's another possibility. Jing Wuming said, Gong Sunlong is the Heaven Devourer Great Emperor's descendant, but there's no way to prove it. Descendant or not, it didn't make much of a difference. Chu Yang didn't care about that. What he cared about was that it would be very difficult to kill Gong Sunlong this time. Are you scared? Chu Yang was stunned for a moment when he heard Jing Wuming's voice. Then, he laughed loudly. I say, big brother, who am I? In the gods' world, Chu Yang dared to provoke even the sovereigns, let alone a mere Gong Sunlong. So what if Gong Sunlong was the descendant of a great emperor? Chu Yang was confident that he wouldn't lose out to a great emperor's descendant. Jing Wuming was surprised. He frowned. Don't be so blind. The inheritance of a great emperor was no small matter. Although Chu Yang was talented, he might not be able to deal with it. In fact, Lifeless Thorn had already spoken a little too much. Big brother, don't worry, Chu Yang said confidently. Jing Wuming was silent for a moment, then said, I need proof. For Jing Wuming, this was too much of a sissy. Chu Yang immediately felt warmth in his heart. With a thought, his devil soul appeared in front of Jing Wuming. Big brother, is this enough? At first, Jing Wuming was a little confused, but then he exclaimed in shock, the aura of a great emperor. The extent of his shock was definitely not great. The reason for this was because of his nature. The light also appeared in front of Jing Wuming. Big brother, if you think it's not enough, is this enough? Great Emperor's aura. Jing Wuming exclaimed again, but he quickly corrected himself. No, this is the aura of the sovereign of the God realm. Not bad. Chu Yang was not worried that his secrets would be leaked. Furthermore, Jing Wuming already knew the secrets of his 100 heavenly abodes, so there was no harm in knowing more. Naturally, these were not the most important reasons. The most important reason was that he had opened his heart and was sincere. Jing Wuming did not have much to do with him, and he was extremely cold, but he had shown his sincerity. For such a person, Chu Yang would rather believe the wrong person and pay the price in the end to show his sincerity. Especially for someone like Jing Wuming. Big brother, Chu Yang finally said with incomparable confidence, I'm definitely not inferior to any great emperor's inheritor or any great emperor's descendant. Jing Wuming's eyes were filled with surprise and shock, but there was also a hint of warmth in his eyes. However, he did not say anything and directly left Chu Yang's spiritual world. Chu Yang's spiritual world followed him out, and he immediately heard Jing Wuming coldly announce to everyone, This is my younger brother, do you understand? As soon as he finished speaking, his deathly still eyes slowly swept across the entire place. After that, his entire body silently disappeared, completely disappearing from sight. Chapter 2042. That's my younger brother. Silence filled the air. In the end, no one could have guessed that it wasn't Jing Wuming's real body. It wasn't even a doppelganger, and yet it still seemed so shocking. Chu Yang was also shocked, but he already knew the answer from the Ice Koan. He also understood why his spiritual body, which was like a godhead, could be dismembered so easily. After he left the stage, the crowd went into an uproar. Chu Hang is Jing Wuming's younger brother. If anyone dares to touch Chu Hang, Jing Wuming will deal with their entire family. Wild dog. Who dares to say that in the future? What does the Sky Demon Academy mean? Are they already on the side of the Eastern Wilderness? So what if the Sky Demon Academy isn't on the side of the Eastern Wilderness? A death god like Jing Wuming is already scary enough. Looking at his cultivation, he should be even more terrifying. Chu Yang understood the impact of these words. However, if he knew Jing Wuming's identity, he would have realized that his judgment was far from his colleagues. On the closed spectator stands, the leaders of the Sky Sword Academy, Sky Academy, Star Academy, and Myriad Academy couldn't help but look at the leaders of the Sky Demon Academy and Divine Firmament Academy. Brother Gua, Brother Duan, is this also your idea? Jing Wuming was the grandson of the Sky Demon Academy's leader and the grandson of the Divine Firmament Academy's leader. The leaders of the other 4 academies naturally knew about this. Moreover, Jing Wuming had been a supreme genius since he was young, so he had long been noticed by the other 6 academies. Neither the leaders of the Sky Demon Academy nor the Divine Firmament Academy said anything. They didn't deny it, but they didn't admit it either. However, this was enough to explain many things. At this moment, The East Continent inspector was also very surprised that such a turn of events had occurred. The 6 academies were almost divided from the inside. Brother Gua, the leader of the Myriad Academy, said, "How does your grandson have a relationship with the Eastern Wilderness?" Censure and rebuke were just different methods. "It's actually very simple." The leader of the Heavenly Demon Institute said, "Everyone, you should know that my grandson once obtained a great treasure and was almost killed by someone. At that time, he was saved by a man from the Eastern Wilderness. That person is Chu Yang's elder brother, the so-called Chu Fei." The leader of the Heavenly Demon Academy nodded. "It is indeed him. It's just a life-saving grace. Don't you think it's too much, Brother Gua? After all, the 6 campuses are of the same branch." The Heavenly Demon Institute's leader smiled wryly. At that time, he was carrying a great treasure and was on the brink of death. Any random passerby could have killed him and taken away his treasures. That Chu Fei clearly knew that he had a great treasure on him, and was clearly scolded as a wild dog. However, not only did he not kill him, he also did not take away the treasure. Instead, he risked his life to save him. When the East Continent Patrol Inspector heard this, he sighed. "Is there really such a person in this world? This kind of person is really admirable." The leaders of the Sky Academy couldn't help but sigh. However, only they knew whether they were mocking Chu Fei or praising Chu Fei in disguise. "I wonder what that great treasure is?" Someone asked such a question. Naturally, they thought that the so-called great treasure was definitely not precious. A great treasure that can help one become a sage. As soon as the leader of the Heavenly Demon Institute spoke, the others were all shocked. How could they not be tempted by a great treasure that could help one become a sage? They were really surprised. If they encountered such an opportunity, they would probably be unable to resist such a temptation. They would definitely kill Jing Wuming and seize the great treasure. Chapter 2043. That Chu Fei is really admirable. The leader of the Star Combat Academy could also say, "That Chu Fei is really a fool, a super fool. There's probably no such fool in the world." That's right, it's really amazing. The Eastern Wilderness actually produced such an outstanding person. The leader of the Heavenly Demon Academy observed their expressions and continued, "It's fine if that's all. That Chu Fei and Wuming both love the saber and saber techniques to the extreme. They regret not meeting each other earlier and see each other as close friends." Especially when Wuming asked Chu Fei why he didn't take the opportunity to kill him and seize the treasure. Chu Fei's answer gave him a great shock, and also a great inspiration. That inspiration was the opportunity for him to become a saint. The leader of the Heavenly Demon Academy couldn't help but reveal an expression of admiration. Chu Fei said that the saber is one of his most treasured treasures. He won't allow his saber to fall because of him. No matter how strong or good a saber technique obtained from killing someone is, it's regressive and blasphemous to his saber and saber technique. He also said that all the saber techniques in the world were created by humans. He doesn't have any now, but he will definitely create one in the future. Not taking unjust gains was the demeanor of a gentleman. Yu Dao's sincerity made people sigh in admiration. The patrol inspector of the East Continent and the others had a general understanding of how Chu Fei and Jing Wuming became brothers. However, the leader of the Heavenly Demon Academy didn't mention that Chu Fei was discriminated against by the people of the East Continent and was also in the process of being hunted down. He was already in a difficult situation, but he still saved others. This was even more commendable. In addition, the two of them were in danger and shared life and death together. If you treat me as a brother, I will naturally return the favor as a brother. Therefore, the leader of the Heavenly Demon Academy and the leader of the Divine Firmament Academy could understand Jing Wuming's actions today. Brother Gua, there's still something I don't understand. The leader of the Sky Academy said, "Since your grandson and Chu Fei are as close as brothers, why didn't he do anything when one of Chu Fei's arms was cut off? He was in seclusion at that time." Sacred Pass? The leader of the Heavenly Demon Academy nodded. He only came out of seclusion a few days after the Six Academies Alliance tournament began. "I'm afraid Brother Gua didn't expect your grandson to become a saint as soon as he came out of seclusion. Congratulations, Brother Gua. Congratulations, Brother Duan." The 6 leaders of the 6 academies had gone into seclusion countless times before entering the saint realm. Among the 6 of them, the number of times they went into seclusion was definitely no less than 10 times before they became sages. To become a sage after just one seclusion, it could only be said that Jing Wuming was amazing. Thus, it was inevitable that their congratulations would carry some unpleasant feelings. "Brother Beigong, Brother Tuoba, you are too polite." Although the leaders of the Heavenly Demon Academy and the Divine Firmament Academy said so, the smiles on their faces could not be concealed, and their hearts were fully exposed. Because of Jing Wuming, it could be said that this 6 Academies Alliance tournament had brought about a great change. At least the leaders of the Heavenly Demon Academy and the Divine Firmament Academy would not stand on Chu Yang's side openly, but they would probably secretly help him. Jing Wuming was one reason, and Chu Yang was also extremely amazing. After all, the East Continent was too small. When Jing Wuming stepped into the Central Continent one day, he would eventually need someone to help him, and Chu Yang was the best person to do so. In the eyes of the 2 leaders, there was almost no doubt that Chu Yang would become a sage. Naturally, it was not only the leaders of the 6 academies who were affected, but also the students of the 6 academies. No matter whether they were happy or angry with Chu Yang or anything else, they could only endure it. Chapter 2044. In the first round, Jing Wuming gave up. Chu Yang won and entered the top 4. The second round was between Gongsun Long and Chen Burang. Chen Burang also gave up. No one knew if Chen Burang's choice was because he hated Chu Yang, or if it was for some other reason. However, his choice helped Gongsun Long to enter the top 4. The winners of the next 2 rounds were Long Xiaojun from the Sky Sword Academy and Ma Juexing from the Star Academy. Chu Yang was not surprised that Long Xiaojun won. After all, when he met Long Xiaojun in the Sky Academy, Long Xiaojun was already a half-step saint. As for Ma Juexing, he was a bit of a dark horse. Before this, Chu Yang had no impression of such a person. The top 4 was like the top 8 and the top 16. People only talked about it for a short while before the matches started. The difference was that the arena this time was more solid than the previous ones. A Nirvana Realm cultivator would not be able to damage the arena at all. However, this was far from enough. Therefore, a formation was set up to support the arena. The drawing of lots for the top 4 was essentially the same as the top 8. However, there were only 4 people in the top 4. After the first group was drawn, the other group was naturally drawn. I wonder who will meet who in the first round of the top 4. Could it be that Chu Yang encountered Gongsun Long directly and directly exploded? If the first round of the top 4 is between Gongsun Long and Chu Yang, it will be more interesting than the finals. Chu Yang and Gongsun Long have a lot of grudges. If it's really them, hee. While people were talking, the referee had already started drawing lots. When Gongsun Long's name was drawn, there was an uproar. When the referee was about to draw the next name, the uproar in the crowd became louder and more uncontrollable. They were also looking forward to it. Do you think it will be Chu Yang? Who knows? Anyway, I'm looking forward to it. Don't worry. It definitely won't be Chu Hang. I can guarantee it with my head, someone said with certainty. Because of this certainty, someone was naturally confused. Why are you so sure? What if it's really Chu Hang? I don't live in the same world as a fool. Think about it yourself. Someone immediately laughed and said, "Haven't you noticed that Gong Sun Long has entered the top 16? It's either he has a bye or his opponents have given up." After many people heard this, they instantly understood. Accompanied by a lot of noise, the referee finally picked out Gong Sun Long's opponent. When this name came out, the whole place went into an uproar again. Long Xiaojun. Gong Sun Long's opponent was Xiaojun, was a half-step Xiaojun. Xiaojun. Someone said Xiaojun. Xiaojun is Xiaojun? Xiaojun is a half-step saint. Gong Sun Long's good luck is completely over. What kind of trick is this? What kind of trick is this? Gong Sun Long has already met Xiaojun. If it's a trick, it should be Chu Hang who meets Xiaojun. Once the result of the draw was out, the suspicion of the Six Academies Alliance competition being manipulated was immediately cleared. Almost no one doubted the fairness of the competition. Of course, Chu Yang was not among these people. Chu Yang was also very confused about the result of the draw. He didn't know what kind of trick his opponent was playing. To be honest, he was already prepared to face Xiaojun in the most difficult competition. Therefore, the result was too unexpected for him. Will Xiaojun directly admit defeat? Chapter 2045. Are you guessing that I will give up right away? This voice was directed at Chu Yang. The person who had spoken hadn't even stepped onto the stage yet. Who else could this person be other than Long Xiaojun? Gong Sun Long would never say such a thing. Chu Yang and Long Xiaojun immediately became the center of attention, while Gong Sun Long seemed to have been forgotten. Long Xiaojun was wearing a white scholar's robe. If it weren't for the unrestrained expression on his face, he would have looked suave and elegant. His face was full of joy and his smile was like a blooming flower. However, he seemed to be restraining himself on purpose. He wanted to savor this joy bit by bit and drag it out as long as possible. He was like a child who couldn't bear to finish his favorite candy in one go. Chu Yang was very sure that Long Xiaojun hated him to the bone because he had used the Thunder Tribulation to oppress and humiliate Long Xiaojun last time. Long Xiaojun had probably waited too long for such a revenge. Shangguanlan had stepped forward, so Long Xiaojun had compromised and sworn that he would never harm Chu Yang. The glory of his family had become his shackles and cage. What exactly is this fella planning? Chu Yang frowned but didn't say anything. At this moment, Gong Sun Long had already stepped into the ring. But Long Xiaojun wasn't in a hurry. He smiled and looked at Chu Yang. Then, he slowly walked into the ring. He happily walked around the arena and said with interest, "Let me see which one of the two results is better." Gong Sun Long's face had already turned sullen. He had been completely ignored by Long Xiaojun. First, Long Xiaojun extended a finger in enjoyment. Then, he sized up Chu Yang carefully and observed Chu Yang's reaction. "If I beat Gong Sun Long, I will enter the finals. I will definitely meet you then." He was very certain. Although the other semi-final hadn't started yet, he was already sure that the one who would enter the finals would be Chu Yang. The so-called Ma Juexing was just a piece of shit. Ma Juexing was naturally unhappy, but he wasn't angry at all. This was Long Xiaojun, a half-saint Long Xiaojun. In that case, Long Xiaojun closed his eyes and began to imagine, "If I were to fight with you, I would definitely defeat you and humiliate you. But that would be my limit. Although it is a large competition, I am afraid that I will be criticized if I kill you in the end. This is really uncomfortable." He couldn't help but look annoyed as he talked to himself. Then, he laughed happily and extended another finger. "The second possibility is that I let Gong Sun Long enter the finals and let you kill Gong Sun Long in the finals." After a pause, he closed his eyes again and said, "I've already seen it. You killed your enemy. Not only did you resolve your grudge, you even won first place in one fell swoop. You killed two birds with one stone. That high-spirited and awe-inspiring appearance of yours really makes my heart uncomfortable. I hate to see that proud look of yours. I hate it to death." Long Xiaojun was arrogant and unscrupulous enough. He revealed his inner thoughts bit by bit in front of everyone. So, he quickly made a decision. "I choose to enter the finals myself. At least then, I can humiliate you." Then, he smiled again. "How do you feel? How do you feel now? Can you tell me? I am really curious." "Ha!" He mocked and teased. In the end, he couldn't help but laugh. He was extremely happy. "Up to you." Chu Yang finally spoke. He was very calm. Chapter 2046. Long Xiaojun, you are a semi-sage. Isn't that more valuable? Chu Yang couldn't help but ask. Long Xiaojun was naturally difficult to deal with. He was definitely no match for him, but he couldn't show weakness now and let Long Xiaojun see through him. "Do you think you can beat me?" Long Xiaojun obviously understood what Chu Yang meant. His smile turned cold. "What's so great about you?" Chu Yang's tone became even more sarcastic. "To me, it doesn't matter whether it's you or Gong Sun Long in the finals. It doesn't matter who it is, because the result is already decided. No one can stop me from winning." It was quite domineering, and also extremely elegant. Long Xiaojun's eyes seemed to have been pricked by needles. He suddenly narrowed his eyes. "Don't you feel bad if you don't kill Gong Sun Long in the finals?" Chu Yang smiled. "That would be even better, but it doesn't matter if I don't kill him. Gong Sun Long is already a dead man. Whenever I want to kill him, he will have to die. Letting him live in fear for a long time may not be a bad choice. What do you think?" "Humph, wild dog, you're talking big." Gong Sun Long couldn't hold it in. Many people couldn't hold it in after being insulted like that, especially by their enemy. But there was a crisp sound. People saw Long Xiaojun turn around like a furious tyrant and slap Gong Sun Long's face. In an instant, blood and white teeth flew everywhere. Half of Gong Sun Long's face was already swollen. "Gong Sun Long, you're just someone's dog. How dare you interrupt me when I'm talking?" Long Xiaojun looked at Gong Sun Long coldly. His expression was extremely cold. In his rage, he looked like he could explode and kill anyone at any time. Gong Sun Long closed his eyes and didn't make a sound. He endured the humiliation. In people's eyes, Gong Sun Long was as majestic as the clouds. There was nothing majestic about him. On the other hand, Chu Yang was completely different, and it was Long Xiaojun who caused all this. He made Chu Yang look like his master, and made Gong Sun Long look like a dog. After dealing with Gong Sun Long, Long Xiaojun looked ferocious. He stared at Chu Yang fiercely. "Are you going to use the lightning trial again?" "I promised that I wouldn't use the lightning trial in the competition," Chu Yang said calmly. He thought to himself, "I'll find a chance to kill this Long Xiaojun." "Formation, is it? You've also noticed that there's a high chance of you losing to me, right?" Chu Yang didn't answer him directly. "So, you're feeling guilty and want to know if my array formation has reached the level of a semi-sage? It's just that," he added. "I think you can use your imagination." Chu Yang was talking nonsense all over the place. He didn't even have a filter on his mouth. He could even boast about it. "Ha ha!" Long Xiaojun suddenly burst into laughter. "Chu Yang, even if you are as cunning as a ghost, I can still see through your flaws. You have no confidence in winning against me. Is he testing me?" Chu Yang wasn't sure, but he said calmly, "I've said it before. It's up to you. Do whatever you want." "Humph!" Long Xiaojun snorted. "Do you really think I can't see through you?" Then, without turning his head, he roared, "Gong Sun Long, get out of here!" There was no sound. People looked behind Long Xiaojun. They were confused. "Gong Sun Long, do you want me to kill you?" Long Xiaojun was enraged. His face was ferocious. He suddenly turned around and stirred up a tornado. However, when he suddenly saw a golden token in Gong Sun Long's hand, his ferocious face instantly froze. On the golden token, there was the word trust. This was the token of Long Xiaojun's family. Long Xiaojun couldn't be hostile to anyone who had this token, and he had to agree to one thing. A promise was worth 1,000 gold. Long Xiaojun's family treasured it the most. Now it was his shackle again. Chapter 2047. Ah! He raised his head to the sky and let out a long howl. Rolling sound waves rushed into the sky and dispersed the white clouds in the sky. Long Xiaojun, I ask you to step down. Gong Sun Long enunciated his words clearly. Everyone could hear him clearly. They didn't know what the golden token represented. How could they order Long Xiaojun around? But that wasn't important. What was important was that Long Xiaojun seemed to have no choice but to compromise. Chu Yang couldn't help but laugh. You must hate Gong Sun Long even more now. I will find another chance. This was Long Xiaojun's reply. Chu Yang didn't hold back. You can count how scared you are right now. You are even more despicable than Gong Sun Long. Of course I know that. Chu Yang laughed even more happily. But what can you do to me? Long Xiaojun was so angry that he almost fainted. He didn't want to be provoked anymore, so he flew away. On the arena, Gong Sun Long took a step forward and looked coldly at Chu Yang. He said, Wild dog, don't even qualify for the finals. Gong Sun Long and Chu Yang hadn't even met yet, but the situation had already deteriorated to such an extent. People didn't know how the battle would turn out if they met in the finals. Gong Sun Long, congratulations on making it to the finals. Chu Yang didn't care about Gong Sun Long's provocation and congratulated him with a smile. I will let you know that you are just a dog. You will never be able to rise again. Gong Sun Long threw out such a venomous sentence. Then, he stormed off the arena in a fit of rage. Chu Yang's smile was also cold. He had heard enough of wild dog. From now on, he wouldn't dare to say that to anyone. Dong. The arena shook violently. Before the referee could say anything, a tall and burly young man landed on the arena like a star. Only when he stood still did people see his face clearly. It was a square face. His entire face was very flat like a rough carving. Wild dog, come up and die. As soon as Gong Sun Long said, Wild dog, this person immediately followed up. It was as if they were in a relay race. Ha ha. Chu Yang was so angry that he laughed. You really don't know how to write the word death. Long Xiaojun is a half-saint. I don't even care about him. You are only at LV8 life realm. What? This person was naturally Ma Juexing. 3 out of the top 4 had emerged, leaving only Ma Juexing. Wild dog. Ma Juexing sneered, you're only relying on the array formation. Even if you set it up, will it be of any use? Look at what this is. He took out a small purple flag in an extremely playful manner, and waved it in front of Chu Yang's eyes. It seemed as if he was showing off. But Chu Yang didn't know that it was a flag. The flag. The formation-breaking flag. Was Juexing. Was formation. When he was in the Sky Academy, he had encountered this flag. He didn't expect to encounter it again today. Let me tell you, this formation-breaking flag can restrain saint-level formations, Ma Juexing said. He was so proud of himself that he couldn't help but laugh. Whoosh! Chu Yang flew into the field. With a loud bang, the 5 mother-child heavenly demon cauldrons, the mother cauldrons, and the child cauldrons appeared. They formed a huge formation in the air. Then, with a loud bang, the power of thunder and lightning was about to strike. Ma Juexing was shocked. He immediately threw out the formation-breaking flag. However, a 5-colored light swept over and the formation-breaking flag disappeared in an instant. Rumble! The 5 mother-child heavenly demon cauldrons formed the 5 elements formation. They absorbed the power of heaven and earth and transformed it into the power of the five elements. They were like 5 heavenly rivers flowing in the air. They gathered in the formation and transformed into endless power of thunder and lightning. In the blink of an eye, a huge bolt of lightning struck Ma Juexing like a giant axe. As the sky shook and the earth shook, it struck Ma Juexing. Ma Juexing was like a black charcoal. His whole body was smoking, and there were still sizzling lightning flashing on his body. His body swayed twice, but he persevered. He stared at Chu Yang with his eyes wide open. "What kind of magical power is that?" "You don't need to know." With a thud, Ma Juexing fell to the ground and died. His eyes were wide open. He died with a grievance. Clean and efficient, he instantly chased after the star. Chapter 2048. Shocking, absolutely shocking. When Ma Juexing took out the formation-breaking flag, when everyone thought that Chu Yang was in trouble, Ma Juexing was actually killed in an instant. It was clean and tidy, and it only took an instant. It could be said that this was another facade of the Chu clan. Ma Juexing was very strong. Everyone understood that this was a show of strength by Chu Yang against Gong Sun Long. "Are you scared?" Chu Yang stood in the air, facing Gong Sun Long's gaze, and spoke indifferently. They didn't know how Gong Sun Long would respond, and they didn't know what he was thinking. However, at this moment they felt an enormous pressure in their hearts. Chu Yang was a 9th grade formation master. Even if he had the formation-breaking flag, it would be useless. It would definitely be taken away by Chu Yang's divine ability. How would they respond? Gong Sun Long's cultivation level had definitely not reached the life realm. Facing a 9th grade formation, he would definitely die. Under the gazes of tens of thousands of people, Gong Sun Long's lips curled into a mocking smile, and he said mockingly, "Wild dog, what's the difference between you and Ma Juexing? Don't you think you're overestimating yourself?" The crowd was in an uproar. Ma Juexing didn't know Chu Yang's strength, so how could Chu Yang know Chu Yang's strength? There was nothing wrong with his words. From this, it seemed that it was possible for Gong Sun Long to kill a life realm martial artist, and it was also possible for him to resist a 9th grade formation. "Are you saying that if I can do it, you, Gong Sun Long, can do it too?" Chu Yang wasn't surprised by Gong Sun Long's counterattack. He was just testing Gong Sun Long, and the answer he received made his heart sink slightly. It wasn't a problem for Gong Sun Long to kill a life realm martial artist. Perhaps many people still had doubts about this point, but Chu Yang was extremely sure of it. Gong Sun Long's martial soul was the yin-yang 4 symbols vase, which was just a facade. His martial soul was the heaven-devouring serpent, which made it possible that he was a descendant of the heaven-devouring great emperor. Is using the 5-colored divine light to kill a piece of trash like Ma Juexing very impressive? The sneer on Gong Sun Long's face deepened as he said again, "You have already exposed one of your trump cards. What is there to be proud of?" This was the truth. Of course, Chu Yang could refute. "Gong Sun Long, you used Ni Yuan Kai, Ma Juexing, and the others to test my strength. What do you have to say?" However, he did not say that it was Gong Sun Long's doing. In the end, Gong Sun Long did not reveal his strength. Until now, no one knew what Gong Sun Long was capable of, and what his true strength was. This was undoubtedly a supreme advantage. Chu Yang realized that his arrogance just now was not worth it. Everyone's focus was naturally different. They were focused on Chu Yang's ability, the 5-colored divine light. When Gong Sun Long uttered the words, 5-colored divine light, there was an uproar. The 5-colored divine light is actually a 5-colored divine light that can wipe out all things. Chu Hang actually has such a supreme ability. The 5-colored divine light is extremely difficult to cultivate. Without racial talent like the Peacock King, how can one cultivate it? To cultivate the 5-colored divine light, one needs to have an extremely deep understanding of the 5 elements. It seems that Chu Hang's understanding of the 5 elements has reached an extremely high level. I'm afraid that no one in the Eastern continent can compare to him. No one in the Eastern continent can compare to him. This basically meant that no one in the Eastern continent could cultivate the 5-colored divine light. This was not an exaggeration because the 5-colored divine light was only a legend, whether it was in Chu Yang's previous life or in the heavenly spirit world. It was a divine ability that existed in myths and legends. For many people, it was too far away. Chapter 2049. Chu Hang's comprehension is really too amazing. He can even cultivate the 5-colored divine light. He hid it so well that he only used it just now. He must have many secrets and methods that he hasn't used yet. Killing a life realm martial artist, this is actually not the limit of his battle strength, even without the formation. With the 5-colored divine light, people had a new judgment of Chu Yang's strength. While Chu Yang was sure that Gong Xuanlong's strength was extraordinary, Gong Sunlong was also sure that Chu Yang was very difficult to deal with. The short confrontation between the two ended for the time being. It was useless to say more. They would fight to the death in the arena. Chu Yang got off the arena and waited for the finals to begin. The arena had already been set up during the semifinals, but 6th Campus felt that it was not enough, so they set it up again. This caused the competition to drag on for a long time, which made those who couldn't wait a little impatient. They were like ants on a hot pan. However, this battle between Chu Yang and Gong Sunlong had been brewing for a period of time. So, it had become even noisier and more anxious. The atmosphere had also become oppressive and tense. Many people had even begun to feel nervous. It was as if they were the ones who were going to fight. Soon it was noon. The sky was clear and there were no clouds for thousands of miles, without a trace of color. It was as if a diligent woman had completely cleaned the sky. The scorching sun hung high in the sky, but when it fell on the arena, it made people feel that the sun was very gentle. At this moment, the sun seemed to know that something important was about to happen, so when it came, it tiptoed, as if it was afraid of angering someone. In the culmination mountain range, from time to time, the low roar of beasts and the high-pitched cry of birds could be heard. Perhaps because of the strange atmosphere in the arena, the monster beasts of the mountain range were attracted. Many monster beasts appeared on the periphery, and there were even birds of prey circling in the air. The monster beasts even changed into their human forms and entered the arena to watch the battle. In the culmination mountain range, except for the students of the 6 colleges, almost all the martial artists of the East Continent in the mountain range had gathered, making the entire arena even more crowded and noisy. It could be said that there were people everywhere, and the sound of people could be heard everywhere. It was as if a sea of people could no longer describe the lively situation in the field. At this moment, it was as if the golden age of a dynasty had arrived. The atmosphere was pushed to the extreme, and it was also when the atmosphere was at its peak. The finals of the 6 Academies Alliance tournament had finally arrived. In this competition, the finalists are Chu Yang from the Sky Academy and Gong Sunlong from the Sky Academy. In addition to the excitement in the referee's voice, there seemed to be a trace of excitement and restlessness. It was as if he couldn't avoid the battle between Chu Yang and Gong Sunlong. He was looking forward to this battle and wanted to know who would win in the end. However, he did not lose his sense of propriety and went through the shortest procedure. The combined competition of the 6 academies has been held for many years. However, in the past years, the students of the same academy have rarely met each other in the finals, so I have forgotten that such a situation happened in that year. Therefore, let's congratulate the Sky Academy. The crowd didn't care much about this, but the applause was still very enthusiastic. It resounded throughout the entire Zhongtian mountain range, and spread far and wide. "I'll cut to the chase," the referee said with a smile. "I know how you feel. You can't wait for the start of this battle, but you are also a little worried about it. I feel the same as you, so now, please." His voice became louder, as if he was roaring, trying to make the loudest sound possible. "Chu Yang from the Sky Academy, please come to the arena." Chapter 2050. Bang. When the two's names were mentioned, the crowd burst into an uproar like an eruption of fire, deafening to the ears. It was as hot as magma, wanting to melt and burn everything. After that, everyone's gazes fell on Chu Yang and Gong Sunlong. At this moment, the two were the brightest stars in the arena. Shua. Gong Sunlong's movements were clean and efficient. His figure was like lightning, and with a leap, he had already landed on the arena. With a bang, the arena didn't shake, and only let out a muffled sound. It was unknown how sturdy the arena was. Perhaps even a 9th-level life realm expert wouldn't be able to destroy the arena. Chu Yang was not so fast. He took a step forward and walked towards the ring step by step. However, his heart was surging up and down. This was the final battle. After this battle, he would trample all 6 great academies under his feet. His name would be known by everyone, and the horn for the rise of the Eastern Wilderness would be blown. No one could stop him. Scene after scene appeared in Chu Yang's mind. He was thinking more about the Eastern Wilderness, and the hatred of his elder brother's broken arm didn't seem to be that strong. Naturally, he clearly knew that winning the first place in the 6 academies' joint competition was far from enough. However, the students of the 6 academies couldn't stop him from winning, and they couldn't stop him from leading the rise of the Eastern Wilderness. He could be said to be the arrowhead of the Eastern Wilderness. Chu Yang didn't have the slightest intention of underestimating Gong Sunlong. Jing Wuming's reminder made him treat Gong Sunlong with caution. Thus, every step he took was to adjust his state of mind and adjust his state of mind. Only when he was in his best condition and in his best state could he display his endless might. Thus, he even removed his disguise and suddenly became frivolous. There was an evil smile on his face, as if he was chuckling, as if he was mocking the crowd. After that, his frivolous expression disappeared, replaced by laziness. Laughing, joking, and doing all kinds of pranks, that was naturally not the real Chu Yang. At least in Chu Yang's eyes, he was lazy, he was greedy, and he had all kinds of problems. In life, in himself, he was still exploring and pondering. He was also polishing himself and his heart. All in all, he was still in the process of cultivating his body and mind. He was still moving towards becoming a more mature and perfect self, little by little. Today's battle with Gong Sunlong was naturally also a form of polishing for him. In such an occasion, such an important event, he should be able to make some progress after such an experience. Chu Yang stepped onto the arena. The moment his feet touched the arena, he felt a kind of unshakable solidity. It was as if he had stepped onto an impregnable fortress. And what he needed to do was to use the smallest price to shake this so-called unbreakable fortress and attack this impregnable fortress. The sky flashes. Chu Hang enters the arena. Chu Yang bowed to everyone and said with a smile, "Hello, everyone. I'm Chu Yang. I'm from the Eastern Wilderness. Please open your eyes and enjoy my dazzling performance. I won't let you down." Boom. The crowd burst into an uproar. They were extremely astonished. Chu Yang is going to start like this? Ha ha! Immediately, many people couldn't help but burst into laughter. Chu Hang was still the same Chu Hang. His true nature came out again. On such an occasion, he actually laughed again. Everyone laughed, and Shangguan Lan also laughed. She saw the familiar Chu Yang. There was no suspense in this battle, and she was not worried at all. Lu Yunpeng and the other two, Chui Xinho and the other two, the parrot, Lil Guai, Feng Polong, and Zhang Jian. When they saw Chu Yang like this, the clouds in their hearts disappeared. There was no suspense in the battle between Chu Yang and Gong Sunlong. Chapter 2051. Compared to Chu Yang's relaxed demeanor, Gong Sunlong's demeanor was naturally heavy. Such a feeling caused many people to have a clear understanding of this battle. The winner would definitely be Chu Yang, and definitely not Gong Sunlong. Chu Yang was aware of this, but his state of mind didn't fluctuate much. After all, this was of no use. Gong Sunlong also noticed this, but he didn't say anything, nor did he care. He didn't care about Chu Yang's hype, and even allowed Chu Yang to do as he pleased. Such an attitude actually showed how relaxed he was compared to Chu Yang's relaxed demeanor. Not only was he relaxed, but he was also disdainful. Even though he knew the consequences of Chu Yang's actions, he was indifferent. He naturally wouldn't rush him. Chu Yang naturally played to his heart's content, and he obviously didn't care about Gong Sunlong's disdain. It's so lonely to be invincible. He first sang the song, "It's so lonely to be invincible," and then he made all sorts of jokes. At the end, he said, "Please call me Chu Hang in the future. I don't want to hear such praise from Chu Hang in the near future." Haha. Many people laughed, but they realized that there wasn't much laughter. Only then did they realize that the atmosphere was a little strange, and many people couldn't laugh anymore. Gong Sunlong looked like a dead man, but he was definitely not a dead man. Chu Yang finally walked in front of Gong Sunlong, and their auras clashed invisibly. Soundlessly, waves of visible airwaves rushed out from where the two of them were. Suddenly, everyone was shocked, as if a huge rock was pressing down on their hearts. "You're very calm and confident," Chu Yang said with a smile. "I like opponents like you." These words were naturally harsh and unpleasant to the ears. It was like the arrogance and wildness of a villain before being slapped in the face, but Chu Yang didn't care. There was no other way. He was a person with a cheap mouth. "You also want me to say that you're very calm and confident?" Gong Sunlong said calmly. "Do you lack such praise?" "It seems that we really do lack it." Chu Yang smiled and said, "I ask for too much, but I don't know how to pay for it. I think it's natural for people to love me, and that's why I feel like I lack love." Everyone felt that Chu Yang was spouting nonsense again. They also found that he had turned the originally tense battle into a foul atmosphere. It had completely changed the atmosphere. It even made them feel that Chu Yang and Gong Sunlong were not enemies, but two friends who had met in the arena. If this is a skill, then this skill of Chu Yang's must be extraordinary. "Wild dog, are you ready to die?" When Gong Sunlong opened his mouth again, it made everything seem more like a conversation, even though his words were very unfriendly. "After I kill Wild Dog, I'll destroy the eastern wilderness." After a pause, Gong Sunlong shook his head and said, "Death is easy. Perhaps it's more interesting to let the people of the eastern wilderness live like dogs." Chu Yang didn't get angry. He turned on his verbal mode, and said something equally unprofessional and extremely vicious. "Eastern maggot, after I kill you, I'll destroy the Gong Sun family." He also paused and shook his head. "Death is easy. Perhaps it's more interesting to let the people of the Gong Sun family be dogs, and let them experience the abyss of suffering. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, a blood for a blood, but it was an incomparably childish act of an eye for an eye, a blood for a blood." However, Chu Yang didn't care. It didn't matter if it was childish or whatever, he would let people say and curse him. "I want to end this conversation." Gong Sunlong didn't get impatient. He touched his fist with his left hand and smiled. "I already want you to die." Chapter 2052. "Then please come and kill me." "As you wish." Gong Sunlong's voice was thunderous at the end. Soon after, everyone realized that the sky above the arena had suddenly darkened. It was as if night had fallen and the starry sky had appeared. At the same time, strands of starlight shone down. However, Chu Yang clearly knew that it wasn't starlight shining down. It was astral force surging out of Gong Xuanlong's body. The only reason it could create such an illusion was because Gong Xuanlong's comprehension of the art of the stars was very deep. Rumble. Gong Xuanlong's body visibly swelled. It was as if there were stars rotating in his body. Every acupoint was a star, making his entire body transparent. Every part of his body was filled with astral force. Rumble. Another loud sound rang out. Endless astral energy surged out of Gong Xuanlong's body, forming many stars outside his body, densely packed. He had only swelled to a height of 300 meters, but he suddenly shrank back to his original size. There didn't seem to be any change, but he gave off an extremely dangerous feeling. His entire body seemed to be condensed from astral force. The Astral Academy was the best at the art of the stars. However, at this moment, Gong Xuanlong's art of the stars made many of the Astral Academy students present feel inferior. This isn't his Tao. His martial Tao is just a disguise to hide himself. Chu Yang was very clear about this. However, if he couldn't even see through this disguise, what else could he do? He also understood that Gong Xuanlong intended to compete with him in physical strength. He had already proven that his physical body was invincible. Rumble. Just like Chu Yang's response before, his response was the same as before. The space above his head darkened as endless starlight fell. His body also became transparent. It was as if there were endless stars surging within him. It was as if he was condensed from astral force. Outside his body, many stars also condensed and revolved around him. Chu Yang's star arts were not bad either. They were not inferior to Gong Xuanlong's. After all, he had even taken Beiqianxing's soul. In an instant, it was as if two sons of the stars had met in the arena. Such a scene left many students from the Star Academy speechless. Were they students from the Star Academy, or were Chu Yang and Gong Xuanlong students from the Star Academy? As for the students from the other 5 great academies, they could only express their sympathy. Who told them to meet 2 heaven-defying characters like Chu Yang and Gong Xuanlong? Silently, Gong Xuanlong threw a punch. Immediately, it felt as if a vast starry sky was rushing toward them. His fist was also like a star falling from the sky. It was just an ordinary punch, but it had such an effect. Clearly, Gong Xuanlong's physical body was extremely strong. Pegasus Meteor Fist. Chu Yang was still in the mood to laugh, and shouted out the so-called Pegasus Meteor Fist. A horse neighed, and the astral power formed a white horse. That white horse galloped in front of his fist. It was as if it was pulling a meteor, galloping in the night sky. Of course, this punch had the same effect as Gong Xuanlong's. It spread out the starry sky before everyone's eyes, making them feel as if stars were appearing one after another. Boom! With a loud sound, the 2 fists collided. It was as if 2 stars in the starry sky had collided. Their long hair snapped and lashed out like countless divine whip. They seemed to have pierced through the void. In an instant they were very straight. Chapter 2053. Kachacha, the arena that the 6 great academies had meticulously prepared, which not even Life Realm martial artists could shake, was instantly filled with cracks. Everyone's eardrums were ringing from the impact. Even so, this scene still shocked them to the extreme. The arena was so weak, just how strong were these 2? Could it be that their battle prowess has long surpassed the Life Realm? This thought couldn't be suppressed, and only a few people noticed it. The arena's formation hadn't been fully activated. The place where Chu Yang and Gong Xuanlong were standing seemed to be a forbidden area for the formation. The formation's power couldn't reach that place at all. Chu Yang was a formation master, so it was understandable that he could do this. Gong Sunlong wasn't, but he clearly had a treasure that countered the formation. Boom! Chu Yang understood this and knew that Gong Sunlong had already dealt with his formation. He immediately summoned the 5 Hell's mother-child heavenly demon cauldrons, and the mother cauldron and the child cauldron rained down on the arena. With a whoosh, something flew out of Gong Sunlong's body. It didn't seem to do anything, but it seemed to swing, and with a light pop, the mother cauldron and the child cauldron spasmed. At this time, Chu Yang finally saw that thing clearly. It looked like a divine whip, but it looked more like a snake. If it was a snake, it seemed to only have a mouth, no eyes, and no head. It looked very strange. King Devourer Snake? His pupil shrank slightly, but he couldn't be sure. Zar zar! At this moment, this whip-like snake treasure opened its mouth like a gate, revealing a mouth full of sharp teeth, and bit at Chu Yang. Whoosh! Chu Yang wasn't sure of the weapon's power, so he didn't dare to face it head-on. He used the 5 elements' chaotic steps and dodged. One after another, Chu Yang appeared and attacked Gong Sunming. Pegasus Meteor Fist. They roared in unison, which stunned Gong Sunlong. Gong Sunlong seemed to have revealed a bit of his trump card, and so did Chu Yang. The uniqueness of Chu Yang's mana was also displayed in front of Gong Sunlong and everyone else. Gong Sunlong was just as cautious as before. His snake-like weapon returned to defense and smashed all the Chu Yang into pieces. It was only then that Gong Sunlong realized that these Chu Yang were all very weak. Oh no, I've been tricked. Suddenly, he felt a sense of danger. You only realized it now? It's too late. Chu Yang shouted. Soon after, the sound of rolling thunder came from the void, shocking everyone. The sound of thunder and the formation. Chu Yang's ability to instantly chase after a star had left a deep impression on everyone. Therefore, when they heard the thunder, they immediately thought of Chu Yang's array formation. However, they didn't expect Chu Yang to use his array formation and his trump card in less than 3 rounds. Naturally, people also noticed the array formation. After the 5 Hell's mother-child heavenly demon cauldrons were sent flying, they had already flown into the air. The mother cauldron was the center, and the child cauldrons formed the 5 elements array. They absorbed the power of heaven and earth, turned it into the power of the 5 elements, and then turned it into the power of thunder and lightning. Chu Yang had a deep understanding of the thunder principles. The 5 elements generate thunder. He naturally used it on the array formation. Gong Sunlong also noticed it at this time, but he was caught off guard. The array formation was in the air, but it was at an extremely high altitude. When they fought, he didn't notice it. Rumble! The world shook, and a huge bolt of lightning struck down from the sky like a lightning punishment. Chapter 2054. Star Armor. Lightning struck down. Just as Gong Sunlong was about to be struck by lightning, a black armor emerged from his abdomen and covered his body. At the same time, the snake-like weapon returned and floated above his head. Rumble! 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 Thunder shook the sky as the area was drowned by endless lightning power. However, it quickly disappeared as if something had devoured the lightning power. Gong Sunlong soon reappeared in front of everyone. His body was covered in lightning, but he was not injured at all. The dark armor on his body was madly devouring the power of lightning. Even the snake-like treasure above his head was also devouring the power of lightning. This attack, which could instantly kill a life realm being, had actually been easily blocked by Gong Sunlong's swoosh. Chu Yang wasn't surprised at all. He had already moved when Gong Sunlong was resisting this big thunderbolt. He moved as fast as lightning, and smashed his fist towards Gong Sunlong's chest. Dong! There was a loud noise as if a big bell had been hit. Gong Sunlong was blown away, but he tried his best to control his body. His body exploded with endless starlight as he fell into the arena like a star. After a loud noise, His legs were firmly rooted in the arena as he took the divine power of Chu Yang's punch. Drip, drip, drip. Chu Yang did not chase after him. Blood kept dripping from his fist and landed on the arena, making the sound of water droplet. His fist was badly mangled, and the pain was excruciating. When the punch landed on Gong Sun Long's armor, it was like hitting a mountain of swords. Not only was the armor shockingly sturdy, but it also had an extremely sharp power. Moreover, there was a strange power that was devouring and weakening his power. Since Chu Yang's body had become a god, it was the first time his body had been injured. He was extremely shocked. The armor and the weapon that looked like a snake or a whip were filled with strangeness. They were shrouded in a layer of fog. He was very sure that Gong Sun Long's two godly weapons had nothing to do with stars. Star hook. Gong Sun Long immediately counterattacked. He raised his hand and swept it. An object flew over. It was wrapped in starlight. It looked like a snake. It arrived in front of Chu Yang in the blink of an eye and hooked towards his neck. Clang! The sword of contradiction appeared in Chu Yang's hand. It blocked the attack in front of him. The expressions of the spectators below the arena had already changed. Chu Yang and Gong Sun Long had been wishy-washy in the beginning, as if they were two old friends who hadn't seen each other in a long time. However, their first exchange had been incomparably shocking, and the Star Do Academy was blushing with shame. In the blink of an eye, the battle became even more violent, reaching its climax. During this period of time, it did not seem like there was any probing, nor did it seem like there was anything holding back. It was as if all of its trump cards had been brought out. Techniques emerged one after another, and the use of treasured artifacts had reached the acme of perfection. For the time being, the two of them were evenly matched. However, Chu Yang's methods were more forceful. He could set up spirit arrays with just a wave of his hand. On the other hand, Gong Sun Long relied more on spirit artifacts. Whether it was the armor on Gong Sun Long's body or the snake-like treasured artifact, they were obviously extremely extraordinary. If the origin of these two weapons was known, it would definitely cause a commotion. Rumble! In the arena, Chu Yang and Gong Sun Long paused for a moment, and then began to fight again. The two of them seemed to have transformed into two shooting stars, erupting with endless starlight as they collided with each other at an extremely fast speed. Boom! Once again, the two of them collided. It did not seem to be a collision of flesh and blood. Instead, it seemed to be a collision of two divine mountains and two stars. The collision caused the void to tremble, and the heaven and earth also rumbled. It was a breathtaking scene. Energy surged out from this strike. It was as vast as the ocean, and divine light surged. The collision of divine power was truly world-shocking. It was completely inhuman. Chapter 2055. Wild Dog, are you disappointed? Are you scared? Gong Sun Long sneered. Is this all the formations you rely on? Chu Yang smiled. Don't you know that I have the five-colored divine light? Do you know why I didn't take your weapon and kill you like Ma Juexing? Boom! The crowd was in an uproar. Chu Yang had also set up a formation, but he didn't use the five-colored divine light. Why did he do that? If Chu Yang had used the five-colored divine light, wouldn't Gong Sun Long be dead? Wouldn't he have ended up like Ma Juexing? Gong Sun Long's eyes turned cold. Chu Yang hadn't used his full strength just now. However, he wasn't choked by Chu Yang's words. He sneered. Then why didn't you use it? It was just a test. Was there a need? Chu Yang was telling the truth, but his words caused a great commotion. The battle just now was just a test? Was there any justice? They felt that they couldn't withstand a single blow from such a battle. They were about to be blown apart. Of course, Chu Yang also knew that Gong Sun Long had a way to deal with his five-colored divine light. You're right. It was a test. But what did you find out? Gong Sun Long also admitted that the two of them were just testing each other. This made the crowd unable to remain calm. After that, the two of them stopped talking. The scene fell into silence. However, the crowd noticed that their auras were rising. Chu Yang was like a prehistoric beast that was about to wake up. He was only snoring just now. On the other side, Gong Sun Long was the same. The pores on his body opened, and clusters of divine flames emerged. He was like a god that was awakening. Every time the divine flames jumped, the void seemed to breathe. Endless essence of heaven and earth was swallowed into his body. Borrowing the fortune of heaven and earth, Gong Sun Long's status was equal to heaven and earth. He could borrow some money from heaven and earth. Young master, kill that wild dog. You're just a wild dog. How dare you disrespect the young master? Suddenly, the two servants beside Gong Sun Long, one fat and one skinny, couldn't help but shout when they saw Gong Suanlong's might. Soon after, the members of the Qiankuan party also shouted in unison. Wild dog, who do you think you are? You're nothing. How can young Master Gong Sun be compared to him? Ridiculous. You don't even know that you're about to die. You're just struggling in vain. Such words didn't have much lethality, and many people couldn't agree with them. At the very least, they couldn't see that Gong Sun Long had the slightest advantage. On the contrary, Chu Yang seemed to have the upper hand. All it could do was roar, and the parrot lost interest. It didn't even want to open its mouth. Boom! A sun seemed to rise from Gong Sun Long's palm, spewing out endless haze. It was as if the clouds in the sky had appeared. It carried with it an unparalleled might as it bombarded forward. At this moment, his divine might was shocking. He had an invincible aura, and no one could stop him. Not to mention the people on the stage, even the people below the stage couldn't help but feel an inexplicable sense of horror. What kind of magical art is this? It's so shocking. At the same time, Chu Yang seemed to have turned into a vast ocean. Endless blue bloomed, and unparalleled fluctuations of divine power erupted. It made him look like a god in the middle of the ocean. Behind him, it was as if the sky had turned into a bright moon. It was as if a bright moon had risen from the sea. In his palm, a crescent moon also appeared. The mercury-like moonlight poured out in torrents, making that place look silvery white. Rumble. Chapter 2056. The two looked like the sun and the moon clashing. The moment they clashed, the sun in Gong Sun Long's hand exploded with blinding light, clashing with Chu Yang's moon. At first, there was nothing strange. It was as if the two of them were forcing the sun and moon to rise. Pung! Rumble! Soon, countless tongues of fire erupted from the sun, burning the moon. On the other side, silver rivers appeared on the moon, surging with endless water, trying to extinguish the fire. Gong Sun Long's sun was formed by the power of fire and the Tao of fire. Chu Yang's moon was formed by the power of water and the Tao of water. Everyone present understood that this was a clash between the power of water and fire. The sun and moon were just the extremes of water and fire. This was a clash between Gong Sun Long and Chu Yang's Tao of water and fire. Who would win? TSK. 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 The power of water and fire were like two armies facing each other. Suddenly, there was the sound of metal being corroded. In the blink of an eye, the place was covered in fog. It gave people the feeling that Gong Sun Long's power of fire had gained the upper hand. However, the power of fire from Gong Sun Long's sun was also gradually weakening, but it was not as obvious as the power of water. Those with keen insight even noticed that this was another form of water. In the process of the stalemate, Chu Yang's Tao of water had already changed. In the blink of an eye, the fog became more and more blurry. Common sense said that the fog would disperse when the sun appeared, but it was not true at this moment. Gong Sun Long had a sun in his hand, but it was still completely covered by the fog. The tongues of fire from the sun were also becoming weaker and weaker. The power of water and fire was quickly being consumed. The difference was that Chu Yang was better. The power of water had turned into the power of fog. When the power of water and fire was at a disadvantage, the power of fog would definitely drown Gong Sunlong, and the result would be perhaps this would decide the outcome of the battle. The silent crowd could not help but clamor. Chu Hang's comprehension of the Tao of water is deeper than Gong Sunlong's comprehension of the Tao of fire. He has the complete upper hand. This is an absolute advantage. After all, Chu Hang has cultivated the divine light of 5 colors. How can his comprehension of the Tao of water and fire of the 5 elements not be profound? How can Gong Sunlong resist? Gong Sunlong is overestimating himself. If he could cultivate the divine light of 5 colors, I wouldn't say anything. But he hasn't. Where does he find the courage to compete with Chu Hang in the 5 element? Among the crowd, Gong Sunlong's 2 servants and the members of the Qiankuan party were completely mute. They couldn't even make a sound. Chu Yang was really too shocking. In their hearts, they were already not optimistic about Gong Sunlong. If one were to say that Chu Yang was hiding his strength deeply, then Gong Sunlong was definitely an expert in this field as well, to the extent that even his servants, the members of the Qiankuan party, lost confidence in him. However, this was completely unnecessary. Wind rose. In the field, wind, gale, hurricane appeared out of nowhere. In an instant, everyone could only hear the whistling of the wind. Pung! The wind helped the fire. The sun in Gong Sunlong's hand, under the influence of the gale, was like an army that had cut off all means of retreat. The entire army attacked, turning into a raging inferno that covered the sky. The wind was naturally attracted by Gong Sunlong. He had used another profound, the power of wind, the Tao of wind. The combination of wind and fire was just right. The fire was fiercer and the wind was stronger. Chapter 2057. Boom. The bright moon in Chu Yang's hand seemed to have removed its disguise, revealing its true nature. It turned into a vast ocean, resisting the wind and the flames in the sky. The raging waves beat the shore and the waves reached the sky. The sound of the water was deafening, roaring through the 9 heavens. It was the scene of the god of wind and the god of fire fighting against the god of sea. Inside the vast ocean, the sky and the earth were turned upside down. It was a scene of the end of the world. The battle between the two was very short, but it was as if the sea had turned into mulberry fields. In just a moment, the sea had dried up and the flames had extinguished. The wind had blown away the fog, leaving nothing behind. The world was clear again. However, the wind didn't stop there. It became stronger, stirring up everywhere. The wind raged and created a tornado, rolling toward Chu Yang. Rustle! Rustle! Fine and soft sounds rang out densely, mixing with the wind. In the blink of an eye, the world turned into a dim yellow. Endless yellow sand emerged silently. Driven by the wind, it was like a sky full of bandits, clamoring and rushing to every corner of the world, leaving behind their ferocious and awe-inspiring names. You're the wind, I'm the sand. Entangling, entangling, entangling the world. Chu Yang's voice was the best description. The wind and the sand complemented each other, rolling over, covering the sky and the sun with endless power. When the fire was weak, the wind assisted it. When the fire was gone, the wind became stronger. Then, it attracted the sand, creating a sandstorm. Wave after wave, the power Upanishads changed and connected smoothly without any delay. It was like a skillful craftsmanship. It was a marvelous painting technique that had reached the acme of perfection. He had painted a peerless picture. Gong Sunlong's usage of the Tao of fire, the Tao of wind, and the Tao of sand was so marvelous that it caused people to gasp in amazement. The crowd immediately forgot about the danger of this battle. At this moment, they actually lost their nervousness. They felt as if they had entered a fairyland. They were completely mesmerized by the beauty of this fairyland. Although Chu Yang's voice wasn't very pleasant to the ears, it didn't affect such a beautiful scene. At most, it was just a noisy toad in this fairyland. This Gong Sun Long is really amazing. Xiong Longxiang watched Gong Sun Long's wondrous methods, and his heart was filled with shock. He couldn't help muttering to himself. He finally understood why Gong Zi valued Gong Sun Long so much, even saying that Gong Sun Long was the number 2 character of the Cosmos Party. Below Qian Zi, above tens of thousands of people. This was Qian Zi's promise to Gong Sun Long. As a former member of the Qiankuan Party, Xiong Longxiang naturally knew about Yu Qianzi's ambitions. Gong Sun Long is indeed not bad. Xiaowenjin's eyes were faint as he looked at Gong Sun Long. He couldn't help but nod as he said, perhaps only someone like Gong Sun Long can hold his own against Chu Hang. And someone who can do this is definitely extraordinary. His opponent is Chu Hang. Lu Yunpeng also exclaimed in surprise. Chu Yang had been valued by his grandfather to the point that he had even treated him as an equal. There was no need to mention how amazing Chu Yang was. Moreover, Gong Sun Long had been able to maintain a stalemate with Chu Yang to such an extent. He had no choice but to admit that Gong Sun Long was extremely outstanding. Moreover, this was definitely not all of Gong Sunlong's methods. There are actually 2 dragons in the well of the East Continent. In the end, Lu Yunpeng muttered to himself. He was afraid that he wouldn't be Gong Sunlong's match, and would definitely be defeated. The 3 of them weren't worried about Chu Yang. Gong Sunlong would only push Chu Yang one step further. In their eyes, Chu Yang usually had the time to laugh and joke around, but it was because he didn't feel any pressure. Gong Sunlong's methods were endless, but Chu Yang would only be more excessive. Therefore, the 3 of them were only looking forward to seeing what kind of breakthrough Chu Yang would make after this battle. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.